Through Mr. Mayor, thank you. I can confirm that we are streaming and we are live and recording. You may begin your meeting.
Excellent. Thank you, Madam Clerk. I see that we have quorum, so I call this regular council meeting of Monday, November 7th into session. And as is our usual council beginning, we have the land recognition statement read by Councillor Wink this week. Councillor?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We begin this meeting by acknowledging the land on which we gather is the traditional territory of the Haudenosaunee and the Anishinaabe peoples, many of whom continue to live and work here today. This territory is covered by the Upper Canada Treaties and is within the land protected by the Dish with One Spoon Wampum Agreement. Today, this gathering place is home to many First Nations, Métis, and Inuit peoples, and acknowledging reminds us that our great standard of living is directly related to the resources and friendship of Indigenous people.
Thank you, Councillor Wink. Next up is the approval of agenda. I turn to the clerk.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, thank you. We do have an amendment to the agenda being presented by Councillor Hildebrand and Councillor Olson that the agenda be amended to include the addendum. To you, Mr. Mayor, for any discussion.
Any discussion from council on this amendment? Not seeing any, Madam Clerk?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The vote begins with Councillor Hahn.
Yes.
Councillor Hildebrand.
Yes.
Councillor Kaur.
Yes.
Councillor Olson.
Yes.
Councillor Stewart.
Yes.
Councillor Wink.
Yes.
Mayor Junkin.
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. That does carry. Mr. Mayor, I do have a motion put forth by Councillor Hildebrand, seconded by Councillor Olson. Be it resolved that the agenda for the November 7th, 2022 regular meeting of council be adopted as amended. To you, Mr. Mayor, for any discussion.
Thank you. Any discussion on this motion? Not seeing any, Madam Clerk?
Thank you. The vote again begins with Councillor Hahn.
Yes.
Councillor Hildebrand.
Yes.
Councillor Kaur.
Yes.
Councillor Olson.
Yes.
Councillor Stewart.
Yes.
Councillor Wink.
Yes.
Mayor Junkin.
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. That does carry. That does bring you to the disclosure of pecuniary interest.
Thank you. After viewing the agenda, does any councillor have a pecuniary interest and general nature thereof to declare? Not seeing any, Madam Clerk?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, thank you. I have so noted. That does bring us to our budget open house. To you, Mr. Mayor, your first item on the budget open house is the 2023 budget presentation being presented by Teresa Quinlan Murphy, the Director of Corporate Services and Treasurer. To you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Ms. Quinlan Murphy, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm just going to share my screen. And here we are, the budget open house. So welcome, everyone. This is officially the first meeting of the 2023 budget. And the budget open house is this is the 2023 budget schedule that was presented to council a few months ago that was approved. And so the first item that we have on the schedule is tonight's meeting. And this, the importance of tonight's meeting is to receive input into the town's 2023 budget. The other dates that are listed here outlines the when council will be receiving the draft budgets and when we will be presenting to council on the capital, operating, and water and wastewater budgets. Normally the budgets come to council a little bit earlier in November and December, but because this is an election year, the budgets will be presented a little bit later for the new council to approve the budget. So the town's budget is a financial plan that outlines the money the town will raise and spend within 1 year. It aligns the town's strategic priorities with the services that are delivered daily to the residents. It directs what infrastructure will be purchased, constructed, and repaired. And there are three types of budgets. The first one is the operating levy budget. And this pays for the daily business of the town including the library. And this includes programs and services, including staff to deliver these services, supplies, and repayment of debt for major projects. And this is paid for by your property taxes. Then there's an operating rate budget, and this pays for base services such as water and wastewater treatment, and costs for these services are charged to the residents based on usage only, not by property taxes. And the third budget is the capital budget, and this is used for long-term investments like infrastructure and facilities, which are paid off over time. Road repairs and machinery are examples of capital projects. Development charges also contribute to the funding of our growth related to capital projects. And the question that everyone always likes to ask, how are Pelham's property taxes spent? So we like this diagram because it actually shows where someone's taxes are being spent. If you look at the graph onto your left here, the blue is the Niagara region, which 48% of someone's property taxes goes to the region. The green is the town of Pelham, so 40% of your taxes support the town of Pelham, and 12% is for education, which goes to the province. So if you look to the right here, from the region, the highest expense that the region has is for the police services. You can see from the graph that's their greatest expense, and that's where a large part of your taxes do go to support the police services department. And at the town of Pelham, our greatest cost goes to public works, and that is the roads, sidewalks, a lot of the capital projects. So that's the highest expense that we have. And as I mentioned, the importance of the budget open house is to hear from the residents and businesses for Pelham what their priorities are for the town for the 2023 budget year. And this has been really important. If we look at last year's budget open house and some of the presentations that came to the town, we had a presentation requesting pickleball courts, upgrading the tennis courts. In the past, we've had people asking for splash pads. And the good news is that we've been able to, listen to what the public needs, and in those three examples, the town was able to do those three various projects with grant funding that we received. So it's very important. It's very important for the town to hear what people want for the town. And now I'll pass it back to the clerk's department for our presentations and public input.
Thank you, Ms. Quinlan Murphy. And like you say, we'll go back to the clerk.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, thank you. We do have registered delegates tonight with us to speak to council. I would also like to just have a moment to remind the viewing public that if they wish to contribute, they may email clerks@pelham.ca. That is clerks@pelham.ca. And at the end of the public presentation, I will check that email and see if anybody emailed in. Through you, Mr. Mayor, thank you. Our first delegate is the Pelham Soccer Club. We do have Chris, Brent, and Nicole here. I'll just ask Miss Leach to take a moment and bring those presenters into the meeting. If council can just give us a moment. Thank you. I do believe that we have our presenter in, and Ms. Leach is sharing her screen with the Pelham Soccer Club presentation, and our presenter may begin.
Well, thank you very much. My name is Chris Durden. I'm a director on the board of directors of Pelham Soccer Club. Mayor Junkin and councilors and staff, thanks so much for having us tonight at the budget portion of the meeting. So I've got two other friends from the Pelham Soccer Club who are here with me. So I've got Brent Thomas, and Brent is a fellow director on our volunteer board of directors. As well, he coaches a U13 travel team in Pelham. And then I've got, as well with us, Nicole Burrell, and she's our club's administrator. So she'll be able to answer any questions that any of the counselors might have. So we're here tonight to talk about the partnership between the town of Pelham and the Pelham Soccer Club, and then to discuss hopefully how through the budget process we'll be able as a club to service more kids in the future and more adults who want to play soccer with the hope of promoting an active living, active, healthy living amongst the residents. So, well, we get going with it then. So the partnership between the town of Pelham and the Pelham Soccer Club is for the Pelham Soccer Club really our key partnership. And it is our key partnership because we use the town of Pelham's soccer fields. The town of Pelham provides its soccer fields at a really reasonable rate for us. It cuts the fields and it lines the fields for us. So without that, we couldn't have a club. Now we do have other partnerships, of course, because we need more fields than the town can provide. So we have partnerships with, for example, the District School Board of Niagara. We're the lead tenant over at the beautiful turf at Crosley. And so that's also a very important partnership for us. I'd say that for the town of Pelham, the partnership with the Pelham Soccer Club is an extremely important partnership as well. The reason I would say that is because the town of Pelham's done such a good job in promoting active and healthy living. It's in all your literature, you hear it everywhere. And through our club, we're able, as we'll look at the numbers in a bit, we're able to provide programming for upwards of 900 kids in Pelham each year. So that's providing kids with an opportunity to play soccer at least once a week, many times 3 times a week, making friendships, great connections, staying healthy. And so in my view, this is great bang for the buck for the town of Pelham. All of these kids being out there active, and the financial outlay for the town in exchange is pretty modest, I would say. It's hard to really envision better bang for the buck. So soccer really is a growth sport as well. So many of you know we're just about entering into the World Cup season. So let's hope Canada has a very successful run. And as many of you will also know, Canada will be hosting the next World Cup along with the US and Mexico in 2026. So expectation is that the growth in soccer, both globally and more important here in Pelham, is going to continue into the future. So if, Ms. Clerk, if you could please go to the next slide. Thank you. So I want to talk a bit about the growth of soccer locally and where we are as a club. And some of these things might surprise you a little bit. Let's look at that first bullet point. Largest youth user group in Pelham. So soccer has the most youth registered in comparison to any other sport in Pelham. And you'll see the growth numbers here. So from prior to COVID, we had 692 players registered. Coming out of COVID, we're at 916. So we're nearing that 1,000 member threshold, which is pretty impressive. We're serving kids of all ages as well as adults now. We're starting to expand sort of the age range that we can service. So why the growth, you might ask? And so I think there's some key reasons for this growth. First, the growth mirrors what's happening in the town in general, right? Our town is growing, numbers are growing. And so our growth in the soccer club mirrors the growth in the town. But it's a little more than that too. So if we can just flip over to our next slide. You'll see that we've set out some of what our factors for growth are. Why is the club growing like it is? One is the programming I've talked about. So you'll see little 3-year-olds out there one day, and the next day you'll see college students who have returned in the summer back to their home in Pelham playing. So we have kids throughout the age range. We've taken the board of Pelham Soccer has really taken a sort of a professional approach to things. We've thought that if our numbers are growing like this, we have to be professional. So we have made two key changes. We have a technical director, what we call a head coach, that we brought in. He is a former professional soccer player from Germany. And so he's helping us. We have over 90 coaches and assistant coaches. So in terms of how do we get those coaches ready to help our kids, we've brought in a part-time paid coach to help with the programming, teaching the coaches how to coach all these kids, these 1,000 kids. And so that's really been part of our growth model. Similarly, as I said, I've got Nicole Burrell on this call. She's our part-time paid administrator. Someone has to deal with the registration of all these, close to 1,000 kids, get them registered in their proper leagues, make sure the fields are booked, etc. So those are the things that are helping us grow. Last, we have great volunteers, all the coaches themselves who, hopefully some of them will be watching this. They do an amazing job. And so why I'm talking about the growth as an intro to our presentation is that because of this growth, we need to look at the partnership. We need to relook at the partnership between the town of Pelham and the Pelham Soccer Club. When our numbers were stagnant, or status quo, I should say, for many years, there really wasn't a need to look at the partnership because the amount of fields the town was able to offer us served our needs. It's what we needed. And so there was no real need to take a deeper dive into it. But now with the growth that we're having, along with the town of Pelham's growth, we need to take a second look. And in terms of the town of Pelham's growth, that has an impact both ways. It means that there's more kids locally to play, but on the flip side, it means that some of our green spaces that we used to rely on for practice fields, for example, don't exist anymore. So last year, 2022, was the first year that we did not have access to two really important fields for us that were at the old Pelham Arena on Haste. So we used to have two fields there, we'd be able to have two practices going on at the same time, and we lost that space. The town did try to give us a substitute location, and Brent's going to talk about that next to see how that worked or didn't work. So we need to relook at the partnership in terms of facilities and access to fields. And so when you look at the slide here at the bottom, you'll see the fields that we do have access to. So we've got, all of you have probably seen these fields or maybe even played some soccer on them. Out at Centennial, we've got two fields, Centennial 1 and Centennial 2. Harold Black Park has one 9v9 field. We can turn it into two smaller side fields for the little kids. And then as I talked about, we've got our fields through the DSBN at Crosley and Glen A. Green. Concordia, that's the school in Fenwick on Center that we used this year as a substitute for the two fields we lost at the arena. So if we can flip to the next slide. So I'm going to turn it over here to Brent. Brent's going to talk a bit about the issues that we've come across, as well as he's going to talk about how the town can help us to keep promoting active living amongst people in the town through soccer.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to the presenter. I have confirmed with Ms. Leach that Brent has not arrived to the meeting electronically, but we do have a Jamie and a Colson. I don't know if those are part of your organization.
Sure. Nicole, are you there, ready to go?
No, we've only have you in the meeting right now. I don't know if Jamie or someone named Colson is related to your presentation.
Okay, Nicole, yeah, that would be Nicole Burrell. She's our administrator. So that's just the computer she's using, but I can keep going.
We can let her, we're letting her into the meeting now. Thank you.
Oh, okay, that'd be great. Thanks.
Okay, Nicole is now in the meeting.
Nicole, did you want to speak to the short-term issues that we've been experiencing?
Sorry, I just got in, so I don't know what you guys are talking about. So I don't know where.
Okay, no problem. So I'll take it from here. And Nicole, if you can just jump in when you feel is the time. So in terms of the issues that we've seen through the club in the last year, along with our growth, is the condition of the fields. So essentially what the town is doing for us is they will come out and cut once a week in our playing season. And they will make sure that the lines are out and visible. And they do a good job at what they do in terms of that. Now, if you've played soccer, you'll know that you can't play on a surface that's been cut once a week. It would be like, trying to play hockey and you haven't flooded the rink properly between periods. For two reasons, it doesn't work. One, it's just not enjoyable to play on a field that isn't cut nice and tight. It needs to be cut tight. And two, if the playing surface hasn't been rolled properly and treated properly, it is also a danger, right? The ground's uneven, kids are going to be rolling their ankles. So we need to be able to pick our game up here in terms of the condition of the fields that we offer for our players. So again, the issues then are grass being too long and uneven turf. That in terms of the conditions, that's really what we're seeing. A lot of the fields, Harold Black especially, you're seeing a lot of weeds out there, very little grass, mostly weeds if you go and walk the field. And that's not very accommodating for a good soccer game. Okay. And then lack of fields is a big issue for us. Okay. As I talked about at the beginning, we did lose the ability to use the arena fields. And so the replacement didn't work well for us. Concordia is a private, that's not a town property, but the town was able to work with us to get us in there, which was great. But there were many issues with it. If any of the counselors have ever gone out there and seen the back, I think my next slide, if we can flip to the next slide. So we've got it blanked out here. We called it Concordia Art. It is graffiti filled. It's really nasty. So we had about 250 kids going out to that property per week to play, and they were all exposed to seeing what was on that wall, which was extremely nasty. And the condition of the field was not up to par. It's just not up to standard for a soccer club to have players playing on that. So it was a makeshift effort to try to fill in the gap from what we lost at from the arena fields, but it just didn't cut it.
Well, and one of those fields there didn't even have nets. Like it was just a field of grass. And the kids had to walk through long uncut grass to get there, because even though the town was cutting the better part of the field, we were told that they couldn't cut a path to the back. So they had to walk through like a hay field to get to the back field that did not have a net on it. And I realized they said, we don't want to spend money on it if it's going to be a short-term thing, but we had soccer practices on a field, like with no nets whatsoever. So it really wasn't a viable long-term solution by any stretch of the imagination.
We can go to our next slide, and then the next one. Yeah. Nicole, do you want to speak to what we see as our immediate solutions?
Yes. So we've been told by the beautification department, I believe is the right term, that they have received quotes to do some major maintenance on one soccer field and one baseball diamond for next season. It was about $20,000 for the two combined. So the fields definitely need it. This is kind of like a one-time go in, aerate everything, major weed control. All of the fields need it, not just the one soccer field. I can't speak to the baseball diamonds because we're not baseball people. So we're requesting that you fund that for all three fields, because we really need to increase that. We currently pay for all of the upkeep at Glen A Green. So we roll, we weed and feed, and we cut that grass, and it's the nicest grass field we have. Like it really ultimately is, because we've been putting in the yearly maintenance to it. And the DSVN tells us that they're just going to cut it with the big thing. And we're like, well, that doesn't work for us, but we've worked out a solution together. And like Glen A Green, because of the maintenance that we have done on it, we get lots of compliments on that field. It works out really well for us. Chris, do you want to talk to the cutting? You had.
Sure. So cutting, as I talked about early on, we need to be able to have 2 cuts a week in the competition months, the summer months, the high growing months. And so we recognize the town might be limited right now on what it's able to offer. And that, from what we've heard, it could be because of equipment. Like there's just so many large size mowers, or maybe one that's available. So in terms of a budget request, is there a way that, that the town may be able to purchase another cutter? Or if not, we'd be open to other solutions. But the fact is, it is a fact that we need to have that second cut to offer a proper playing surface. So that is something that, is really high on our list of requests and priorities in terms of how can we get that? How can we have the town help us there? Because that is really what is so crucial. And then if we can flip our slides. And then, of course, this is the bigger question, which is, Concordia didn't end up being a viable fill-in for the fields that were lost at the arena. What can we do? How can the town help us to service these kids by means of providing us more areas to play? Because there's just too many kids to fit into schedules on our existing fields that we have with the town of Pelham. So we don't have a clear solution. We can't say to the town, here's where we want to be, but we want to be a willing partner with the town in terms of figuring out a solution to this issue so we can keep servicing the kids. Pelham draws people for many reasons. There are some parents who are going to say, hey, how was the soccer program there? So it is another draw. It's another feather in the town's cap in terms of saying, here's why Pelham is the place you should be living or running your business. Nicole, do you want to speak briefly on long-term plans?
Sure. So for long-term plans, I know in the old master plan, which has been now currently being looked at from a recreational standpoint, there's a third field at Centennial Park. We need that field. Like we've grown by leaps and bounds and continue to draw people from all over Pelham and our surrounding areas. It's desperately needed. We're very flexible on the size. It doesn't need to be like a full field. Like we have our highest demand is in our smaller fields, our 7v7s and our 9v9s. So that is something that we would really look towards, putting into action. And then also additional fields, as green and recreational spaces planned 100%. We just have a growing, ongoing need in that area. Also, in order for us to continue expanding our teams, there's a league for men in the Niagara region that we cannot put a team in right now because we do not have access to change rooms. So we are not allowed, according to this league, to host a team that plays in this league. So there's Pelham teams that are playing not in Pelham and not under the Pelham soccer banner because they're playing out of Welland because they have access to a change room there or other fields that they have access to. So we would love to partner with the town, on putting, if I believe those plans also had a plan for like a clubhouse in the back at Centennial Park. Or not necessarily clubhouse, but change rooms, accessible bathrooms. I know that that is an issue that's coming up from a government standpoint. I believe by 2025, we need to have accessible bathrooms. And we are definitely would be a willing partner in making that happen, because it would allow us to bring Pelham teams actually back to Pelham and under our Pelham soccer and playing in Pelham where they want to play, but they just are not allowed to right now based on league policies. So Chris,
Okay,
anything
last
else on
slide.
that?
Yeah, sure. Just our last, if we can just flip. I think the main thing is that, first of all, thank you to the town staff that we do work with on a, in this season on a daily basis. We're calling town staff, talking to them about issues with fields, and we want to thank them for being so responsive and helpful. And basically that's it. And I want to just thank everyone for listening, and if anyone has questions that we can answer, we'd be happy to answer them.
Excellent. Thank you for the presentation. It was very informative. Before I turn it to council, I'd like to have our Director of Recreation and Wellness, Vicky, any comments from your perspective on the presentation, please?
Yes, through you, Mayor Junkin. I can't say enough how wonderful Pelham Soccer is and your organization and how professional you are. And it's great to deal with Nicole on a scheduling basis. And it's made our job easier. I can comment on the future plans of fields, and I know that we've met and spoke about this. As you know, we do have the third field in the capital budget. I believe it's in 2024 at the moment. And we hope that that will be developed. The other thing that we are doing this year is we will be lighting Centennial 2, and that is to be lit prior to year end. Actually, I believe that they're working on that now, which that will give you more access and hopefully relieve some of the
Okay, thank you. Or did you freeze?
She's frozen.
Okay. While Vicky is getting unfrozen, let's go to council. And Councilor Wink, I believe I saw your hand up.
Yeah, so just a couple of comments or questions to town staff, and hopefully someone.
Okay, hopefully I'm back.
Go
Okay,
ahead.
so I would also like to say, for some reason, my connection is very poor tonight. And I apologize for that. So I'll speak quickly. With regard to the pavilion that is in the Centennial Park Master Plan. So the pavilion is to also have accessible washrooms, and I am sure with a partnership with the soccer club, we could also include 2 change rooms. Now that is a major build, and I don't have my in front of me, but I believe it's 2026, something like that, unless we get a wonderful grant again. So we will have to see how we make out. And of course, with partnerships, that's always a bonus when you're writing grant applications. And I know that we've had past partnerships with the soccer club, and we've always been successful. I'm going to turn it over to the Director of Public Works, and he can speak on the maintenance of the fields. before I get cut off again. Sorry.
Okay, to the Director of Public Works, Mr. Moore.
Yes, thank you. Through you, Mr. Mayor. I do have Ryan on the line. He's our manager of operations and can speak more specifically to the maintenance that's performed on the soccer fields themselves. I do know that we are limited to at most one cut during the growing season. So, and we've been working with the association and the club to try to increase that frequency, but our current budget only allows us right now to do. Usually, we try to get to the fields once a week, but sometimes during the busy growing season, it's even at a higher frequency than that. So it's less than that. So it's once every like 10 days. So we are short on resources with respect to the frequency that we can cut those fields. I'll turn it over to Ryan now for some comments with respect to our current maintenance and what the future looks like.
Okay, Ryan, you have the floor.
Yeah, through you, Mr. Mayor, we really do try to get sports fields cut a little bit more than the rest of our grass cutting, but our municipal grass cutting crew cuts about 57 acres of municipal grass and parks and playgrounds and facilities. So soccer fields take up about 6 acres of that. Baseball diamonds about 12 acres. So that's our kind of the number of the acreage that we do to cut grass. With respect to fertilizing, our cost is probably about $222 per acre. And we have to do that 3 times a year. So it's about $666 per acre for fertilizing, which we don't provide currently. And if we did provide it, it would increase the frequency of cutting. We just simply can't do that. We really run a knife edge of operations, and we try to get to every single place we need to cut once a week. If we take on more cutting or increase the frequency, then we have to hire more staff and buy more equipment. Typical equipment that we use to cut parks and playgrounds is about $230,000 for a crew, and a crew with 3 guys is about $80,000 in labor. So this is kind of what we would need to increase the frequency.
Okay, thank you for those numbers, Mr. Cook. Jason, any other additional comments, or shall we go back to council?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, I think Ryan summed it up nicely there.
Okay, thank you. Councilor Wink, we'll come back to you again.
Okay, thank you. I've got a couple of points I'd like to make, but let's stick with the maintenance theme and the fact that there's a ton of weeds within the fields, and they're not properly rolled. Coming from a soccer background, I know how important it is to have a nice field. I was privileged to play on great fields in my soccer career, but I know when it comes time to practicing or playing on an uneven field, it doesn't make for a good game for the kids. They will get hurt. Definitely. And just the frustration when all of a sudden the ball's coming to you, you think it's going to be at your feet, and all of a sudden it's at your thigh. We've got to look at doing something a little bit better with that. So just maybe clarification from staff about rolling in particular of these fields. Do they in fact get rolled?
Mr. Cook?
And answer that through you, Mr. Mayor. Each soccer field and all the baseball diamonds are rolled in the springtime. The one thing we don't do is aerate. We do own an aerator, but it's not really an aerator. So that's currently not taking place. But they are rolled.
Councillor?
Yeah, I think I don't want to be too negative on this, but I know when my kids played sports, a lot of the facilities, whether it was soccer or baseball, those facilities were much better than than the facilities that we have in town. And I know we've got limited resources, but we've got to work towards some type of solution on making our fields better. So I'll just leave it at that. The other comment I'd like to make is the fields at the old Pelham Arena. Is there plans on putting them back online once the construction is done in that area, whenever that's going to be? So, Vicki, I'll throw that back to you.
Yep. Vicki, Ms. Van Ravensway?
Yes, through you, Mayor Junkin. No, we do not plan on putting those fields back in. It is a green space that will be used by the neighborhood. We do not have parking facilities. And without parking facilities, well, washing facilities either, but we cannot have, 20, 30, 40 vehicles being parked along streets. So the idea is to replace those fields with additional fields elsewhere, which would be Centennial Park at the moment.
Go ahead, Councilor.
So thank you for that. One last question then. I know they're working on the master plan. Is there, to the committee's comments, is there green space being planned for future fields, whether it be it ball diamonds, be it soccer fields, whatever? Will we have parks that would be new parks coming on stream that would be able to accommodate this?
Ms. Van Ravensway?
Frozen again.
Frozen again. Mr. CAO?
I suppose I can partially speak to that, in that I'm sure I'm not alone on this call as being one of the people the consultants have spoken with, and we don't have the report as yet, but they're certainly asked questions around those, so I'd be surprised if there weren't some findings and some commentary on that. The thing is, it's a work in progress, and so I don't know how to give a more specific answer other than to say we're not deaf to the concept or proposition.
Thank you. Vicki, I believe you joined us again. Any last comments on that subject?
Yes, through you, Mr. Mayor. I apologize. With regard to the master plan, from what I have heard, that is one of the recommendations, that they will be recommending additional field space, which at this time, as we know, the only area that we have left in our active parks is Centennial Park, in which we do have planned to have a soccer field there. Other than that, we will have to find more land.
Okay, thank you.
So,
before I go to Council Olson, he did have his hand up next. While we're on the subject of fields, that going back to Concordia Academy, I've been in your office a few times when if not the owner, then the headmaster was there, and they seem to be very interested in helping the town with facilities. Is there any way that we can enter into a more permanent agreement with them, whether it be 2 or 3 years in the making or lasting that long, so that we could put some resources in that field and upgrade it, whether it be nets, put it on a rotational, in the rotation for getting cutting? Do you see that as a possibility, Ms. Van Ravensway?
through you, Mr. Mayor, I'm sorry, I didn't hear, were you talking about Concordia
Yes.
on Pelham Street? Okay. Yes, that would be a possibility. It was, we had a hard time at first getting permission to use it, and it was late in the beginning of the season. It was our hope that it would be better used and welcomed, I guess. And we can look at improving the fields as well as the netting situation. From what I understand, it started out to have nets, and then we changed it over to 2 fields, the large field, and it was portable nets that were used. So it was a beginning. I know that the Concordia group are willing to work with the town if that would be a way to go forward.
Okay, thank you. Turning now to Councilor Olson, you're next in line.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor, and to our presenters. Your performance as a partner for the town is really impressive. I think looking at the results you've achieved, a growth rate of 33% over 4 years, and you've obviously have a sound organization as far as governance goes. So it makes it possible for us to have a strong confidence in what you're doing. And I recall reading in the paper, in the Voice, about your hiring of your technical director, which I thought at the time was an excellent step to be taking. My question is for Ms. Van Ravensway again. If you're using the Concordia field, do we have insurance for that? What insurance arrangements have we made for that?
Ms. Van Ravensway?
Yes, absolutely. Through you, Mr. Mayor, we do have insurance through our insurer naming Concordia as co-insured. So we definitely do have insurance.
Okay, and my next question is for Mr. Marr. Would you have any idea of what the incremental cost would be of taking on some of these services? And I would start off by talking about the preparation of the ground, aerating and that type of thing. If there's services around that can do that, what would be the cost of that, do you think?
To Mr. Marr?
Thank you, through you, Mr. Mayor. Rolling costs, I'm not sure. Ryan may have some more input on that. I know we did get a quote for doing fertilization, weeding treatment on one of the soccer fields and one of the baseball diamonds. And I believe that quote was coming backwards somewhere around $20,000 for the season to maintain those 2 fields. So it is quite costly to do. Obviously, that's basically one quote that we have gotten. We can look into further suppliers and subcontractors to do that work for us and get some additional pricing. So we can look into those costs and try to come back with something for budget time.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Marr. I think, as far as I'm concerned, I think we should do as much as we can for an organization that's so successful as this one for our youth, and maybe break down the costs a little bit more and break down some of the services which can be provided by an outside contractor. And I see Ryan has his hand up there.
Mr. Cook?
Yeah, thank you. So if you look at it from a per acreage cost, so the cost of rolling and aerating and overseeding is about $25,000. If you expand that out over the soccer fields. Now, if we're going to do soccer field, I think just for the soccer club, I think you should also start to look at what your level of service is for baseball. So whether we address that this year or next year, if we do extra for soccer, there's probably going to be a request from baseball as well. So over the course of the year, if you're looking at what they're proposing is rolling, aerating, overseeding, fertilization, and weed control, you're probably looking at about an $80,000 a year operating hit for providing those services for both. 1/3 of that would be just for soccer, with 2/3 of that cost being both or for baseball. And then you would have to increase your cuts. So if you're going to fertilize and air and seed, you should expect that the grass is going to grow a lot faster than it is without fertilizer, and you're going to have to increase your cuts. That's either going to be passed on to a contractor to provide the service of cutting, or staff, which would include equipment. And we've already sent a KPMG report to council, basically stating that our operations center is at capacity for staff and equipment at the moment. So then you're addressing that problem as well.
Councillor?
Yes, thank you. And just a real wild offhand question. Obviously, artificial surfaces would be preferable. Is there any, the cost is probably prohibitive, I'm guessing at that. Do you have any idea what that would look like?
Councillor
Yes,
Cook? Ryan?
Yeah, sorry, very sorry. Through you, Mr. Mayor, your operating cost on an artificial turf surface is probably double what it is on a traditional grass.
Okay. Thank you, everyone.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Stewart, I saw your hand.
Yes, you did. Thank you. Through you, Mr. Mayor. I'm wondering, either Director of Public Works or Recreation, is there any possibility of using part of the North Pelham Park for soccer?
Ms. Van Ravensway?
Yes, through you, Mr. Mayor. We did identify North Pelham Park. North Pelham Park is very busy with the 2 baseball diamonds. And we could fit one small field at the back of North Pelham Park. The fear was the congestion with limited parking. We already have 2 facilities. And then if we have a 3rd facility going on at the same time, you would definitely have parking on the road, the street, which we had issues with parking on the street with children, going to the cars, and that was a safety concern. So we will speak to soccer with regard to that, and we always meet with the Baseball Association. It would be something that we can discuss further.
Okay. Councillor?
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any other, I see Councillor Hildebrand.
For you, Mr. Mayor. To the presenters, excellent presentation. Greatly appreciated. Great progress your team has made. And I agree with Councillor Olson's comments with rehiring of an administrator and a technical rep. I think that's an excellent development too. Great presentation. Getting on back to street parking. My kids, my grandkids all played soccer. And when we went and played in cities like Hamilton or Toronto or any of those places, street parking is where everybody parked. So I don't quite understand the street parking issue, because I know the Platform Tennis Club, which has about 100 members, when Lally Holmes finally starts their underground work, which they hope to start by April. I'm not sure whether that's going to happen. But anyway, John Lally said he's happy to have kids playing soccer on the field behind there. But why is it an issue of parking cars on the street? Because the Pelham Platform Tennis people, which, like I said, has a club of 100, they're going to be parking on all the streets as well. So can you please explain that?
Ms. Van Ravensway?
Through you, Mr. Mayor. First of all, when the Platform Tennis Association is playing, they don't have 100 members showing up at the same time, because they only have 2 courts. So at 2 courts, you would have 4 people. So you may have, at the very most, you may have, if you had 15 people, 14 people, 16 people at the same time, that would be a lot. And the other thing is they're adults. The issue with, it's a safety concern. You have children, these are small fields, and the fields that we had at the Pelham Arena, every Saturday morning, the full arena parking lot was full. And concerns were actually as well with children running through the parking lot. But yeah, parking is a concern. And it is not a welcomed practice to have children on the streets running. It's just a safety concern.
Thank you. Councillor?
Yes, with regards to the Platform Tennis Club, you should be there when they have their tournaments on Saturday and Sunday and see how many people they have there. Those are huge tournaments with them. It's not 14 or 16 or 20 cars. You're talking, and these people are going to be parking all over the streets. So I don't see any parking restrictions, so that'll happen. But going forward in the future, I think with the development of soccer and the forecasted increase, it looks like for immediate solution that the school boards are the easiest thing to look at. I hate to say that, but it's hard for us to get more green space available. And I know that the local schools have been very cooperative with your clubs. And I don't want to be negative with the fields we have available, but there is a limited potential. And your potential for growth is far bigger than I think we can even expand the number of fields in. I don't want to be unrealistic about it either. But I agree, yeah, we'll take a look at all the things we can do for you because we're glad to do that with a great partner like yourself. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councillor. Any other councillor, any comments, questions to the presenters? Okay, I don't see any. Again, we appreciate the presenters coming out to council tonight and stating your case and needs. And we will definitely be considering them when we get into budget discussions. Thank you.
Thank you all
Clerk?
so much for your time and interest.
Thank you for having us.
Okay. Have a good evening.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Mayor, your next presenter is from the Lincoln Pelham Public Library, and we have both Julie and Amy attending, and if you can just give Ms. Leach a moment or two to bring them into the meeting, that would be great. Yes, I think we do see both of our presenters are there. They're just sharing screen.
Very good.
Thank you. To you, Mr. Mayor.
Go ahead, ladies. You have the floor.
Well, all right. Good evening, Mayor Junkin and members of council and staff. We're so excited to be here with you this evening to talk about our mobile branch concept. Could we have the next slide, please? Lincoln Pelham Public Library has been fortunate to have been bequeathed a former wastewater van to pilot a series of outreach visits to various locations. You can see her there on the slide. Rosie, as she has been affectionately dubbed, has logged hundreds of kilometers over the past 2 years. Outreach visit to local parks, seniors' residences, schools, and special community events have taken our collections and programs outside the library walls and into the community. We knew that folks would love Rosie because she's so cute, and the cool things that we brought with us, like 3D printers, our ukuleles, launchpad tablets for children, books and DVDs, of course. But what surprised us was the huge number of items that were being borrowed during the events and the number of library cards that we were making. So following the merger that we did last April, we expanded to include the town of Pelham in our travels. And it has served to support the need for a more robust service going forward. Rosie, for example, is not equipped for people to get inside, but they really want to. Could we move to the next slide, please? In addition to providing all the great programs and events, our mobile branch will bring a wide variety of materials for all ages, including items from our library of things, like fishing kits, or even our telescope, and lots more. We foresee a regular and scheduled route through our 750-kilometer catchment area that would serve customers in areas where there are no library branches nearby. Jordan, Camden, North Pelham, Effingham, Ridgeville, and Rockaway, and others will also benefit from a regular mobile branch visit. This service, in addition to the holds, pickup lockers, and book vending machine that will be purchased for Pelham with the Ontario Trillium Foundation grant, will increase accessibility for our residents. These additional services are also a means of keeping the library connected to the community and a great way to provide low contact service during a pandemic. Would you please move to the next slide? The plan is to provide mobile branch services throughout our communities by means of a regular route for as many hours per week as possible. This list here is just a starting point. We have many community partners and we intend to leverage those partnerships to plan and deliver our mobile services. Please move to the next slide. The Ford E-Transit is an example of a vehicle that would be suitable for our purposes. It is electric and it fits with our mandates to reduce carbon emissions. The 7-foot height would enable most visitors to climb aboard to browse our collections. The van would have a ramp to enable ease of access and to allow book carts to be taken outside under the awning, thus allowing us to carry more materials. It will have shore power and it will provide Wi-Fi while we're in a neighborhood and enable us to create new memberships and facilitate circulation functions. The estimated cost for all of this is a mere $110,000. In closing, it is our hope that this vehicle will be a shared capital asset between the towns of Pelham and Lincoln, and that all of our residents will benefit from the increase in access. And we are happy to answer any questions you may have.
Very good, ladies. Thank you for that presentation. I will open up to questions, comments from members of council. Not seeing any. If I may ask a question then, is there any other municipalities within the region that have this service already so that you can get perhaps the best practices from them that are already doing it, please?
There's Niagara Falls that has started providing this type of service, but I've also been in touch with the Ottawa Public Library and other larger centers that have this type of service in place. So there are lots of great models out there, and it's an ancient service. To be honest, it's been going on for a really long time. As long as vehicles have been running, there have been mobile libraries. So we have lots of different models we could draw from.
Excellent. Thank you for that. Councillor Olson, I believe I saw your hand.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you to our presenters. As you know, I believe that our library is exceptionally well run. I have a question about the service to, I believe it's your plans page. Our recreation department's done a great job in being in touch with the homeschooled kids. Would this be available to them to deliver the service to their door or to a collection point or whatever? I can see that happening and being a very valuable thing and wonderful for the kids.
Ladies?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, absolutely, Councillor Olson. We already do provide opportunities for homeschool families to come and meet in our branches. So this would just be an extension of that service and would actually make it more efficient and practical for them.
Thank you. Councillor?
Yes, thank you, and thank you for reminding me. I did know that. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Wink?
Yes, through you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you for your presentation, ladies. It's a really intriguing concept. So the ask is for roughly $110,000. Would that be shared by the two municipalities? And okay, so seeing nod of the head, that kind of cuts our ask in half. The other question I would have, so that's the capital outlay. What about the operating costs of that? What do you anticipate that would be, including staff and gas or electricity and whatever? So there would be additional impact on your operating budget.
Ladies?
Through you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, there certainly would, Councillor. I mean, the fact that it will be electric is certainly a help in that way with ongoing costs. We've had Rosie going for about 2 years now, and our fleet department at the town has taken care of any maintenance that we have required during that time, and we also use gas from our municipality, and they bill us back, and it's been not a very large cost. We've also built those activities into our regular staff rotation, so there hasn't been an additional outlay thus far. What we're hoping to do is pilot this type of service with the staffing we have now, and making it work and seeing what we can do to expand the service over time.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Councillor. Any other questions or comments from members of council? Not seeing any. Again, we thank you, ladies, for your presentation, and we'll keep you in mind during the budget process. Thank you.
Thank you so much for inviting us.
Madam Clerk?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, thank you. Our last formal presenter is the Niagara Division Canadian Railroad Historical Association, and we have Paul Chapman. I'll just ask Ms. Leach to bring the presenter into the meeting. Oh, I do see our presenter, Mr. Chapman, is here. To you, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, Mr. Chapman, you have the floor.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor and members of council. I'm here on behalf of the Niagara Division of the Canadian Railway Historical Association. I had distributed through the clerk a copy of our submission. Basically, we're doing a series of what we call interpretive boards related to the Niagara, St. Catharines, and Toronto Railway. Already we have these boards in Port Colborne, in Welland, in Thorold, in St. Catharines. And we have 3 that the City of Niagara Falls are in the process of putting up now. This project is to explain the history of the NS&T, the electric freight and passenger railway that served the Niagara Peninsula. These signs at this time cost about $5,000 each. We've raised approximately $4,000 from the division and members of the public towards this sign. We're looking for a contribution from the town of Pelham of $1,000 towards the cost and installation of the sign. As indicated in my submission, the sign would be located next to the Steve Bauer Trail, just south of Port Robinson Road. There is an existing bench there, and in talking to town staff, that would appear to be an excellent location for the sign to go in. If we're successful in obtaining its funds, this sign could be ready for installation next year. Now, if the town is able to support this project, there would be an acknowledgement and the town crest would go on the sign. As well, we have an unveiling ceremony with each one of our signs in which we invite local media, including cable, TV, to come and to be present. The experience we've had has been very good in terms of getting good coverage. We also normally have MPs and MPPs and often the regional chair at our events. And so it's an opportunity to tell the story and be thankful for this piece of history. Now, from the town perspective, this plaque will tell the story of the NS&T in Pelham. And this line is historic because in 1959, on this line, the last interurban passenger train in Canada operated. The town, well, it was at that point, it was the town of Fond Hill and the township of Pelham. Their chief officials rode that last train and also participated in a dinner marking that event that occurred in Port Colborne. It's, from our perspective, this is an important piece of local history. And given that your trail users are both local people and people from outside the area, would tell the story of the NS&T related to the town of Pelham. I'd be very pleased to answer any questions there are related to my submissions, and I think that's all I need to say right now.
Okay, thank you for that submission. While it is definitely a piece of history that probably should have its story told as to the trail users. Again, thank you for your submission, and I will open it up to council. Any questions or comments to Paul? Councilor Olson.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Paul, for your presentation. These railroads were very important in the formative years of the town of Pelham, or towns in Pelham, specifically Fond Hill. And when these railroads went through the area, they brought with them feed mills and hotels, and they had excursions and all kinds of things that were very important to the society at that time. And I believe I'm correct in saying, and I may not have this exactly right, but at one time you could go from Toronto to Florida on interurbans, and you'd only have to walk like half a mile or something between stations at times. So these were very important, and this was part of the electrification of Ontario, and the development as an industrial area. So I think this is a really great opportunity to recognize the importance of the interurbans and this railroad in particular. I've spoken to the Pelham Historical Society, and they would like to be active participants in the dedication of the plaque and the signs. They see a great value in it, and they volunteered to be part of it and share the cost of whatever type of event we put on. So, thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you, Paul, for your presentation.
Okay, thank you, Councillor. Any other comments, questions for the presenter? Not seeing any. Again, Paul, we thank you for bringing this to our attention, and we will be putting it on the budget ask at the discussions. Thank you, sir.
Well, thank you very much, and I appreciate, if we're successful, I'll be definitely in touch with the Pelham Historical Society. Thank you.
Thank you, and have a great evening.
You too.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, thank you. That's all of our pre-registered members, but I will check the clerks at pelham.ca email address to see if anybody emailed comments live. If you can give me just a moment. Through you, Mr. Mayor, I can confirm that it is 6:41 p.m. and no emails have been received. Therefore, you can move on to council input.
Okay, thank you. Any members of council have a item that they would like to see this council as a whole discuss in the upcoming budgetary process? And Councilor Wink.
Yes, through you, Mr. Mayor. Just to pick up on something that was deferred to the new council, we do need to address the parking in Ridgeville. It's a low-cost item, I believe, that town staff thought we would be able to provide additional parking of up to 8 spots for the cost of about $12,500. So just want to ensure that that's included in our budget deliberations.
Okay, thank you, Councillor. I'll go to Director of Public Works. Mr. Marr, did we indeed have that already in the budget list? Do you know?
Yes, thank you, through you, Mr. Mayor. So we will be including that as a line item as part of the roads 2023 capital budget. It's a little more than the 12,000. I think when we presented it to council, it was around 25,000. So we've got a budget line item in there for council's consideration for 2023.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments from councillors? Not. No, Councillor Stewart, you made it under the wire.
I did. Thank you. Through you, Mr. Mayor. I did put a motion forward about a lighted crosswalk at Wellington Heights. I just want to be sure that that's included in the deliberations.
Okay, thank you for bringing that up, and I'll go return to Director of Public Works, Mr. Moore. Is that again in your department?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, that is correct, and we will be bringing a line item as part of the 2023 capital budget for the installation of a pedestrian crossing at that location.
Thank you.
Great, thank you. Any other comments, items before we move on? And Councillor Hahn.
Through the mayor, yes, I just wanted to ensure that any trees that have died on our boulevards would be replaced. I know that that's been something that has been ongoing and will continue to be ongoing, but just to make sure that, especially with the oaks that we've lost, that those trees are going to be replaced, because there's a lot of trees missing on boulevards.
Thank you, Councillor. Let's go to Director of Public Works again. Director, is that an ongoing program that we have in the town?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor, through you. So we do have a tree policy that was approved by this council. We are adhering to that. We will be bringing a report, staff will be bringing a report in December with respect to an update and basically a report card on our forestry operations during 2022. That program will continue in 23 and we will be reporting to council on that.
Okay, thank you. Councillor, is that good?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments, projects? Not seeing any. I turn to the clerk.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, thank you. I do have a motion put forth by Councillor Kaur, seconded by Councillor Stewart. Be it resolved that Council receive the 2023 budget presentation by the Treasurer for information. To you, Mr. Mayor, for any discussion.
Okay. Any further discussion on this item? Seeing none, Madam Clerk?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, thank you. This vote begins with Councillor Hildebrandt.
Yes.
Councillor Kaur.
Yes.
Councillor Olson.
Yes.
Councillor Stewart.
Yes.
Councillor Wink.
Yes.
Councillor Hahn.
Yes.
Mayor Junkin.
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. That carries. I do have a motion put forth by Councillor Wink, seconded by Councillor Hahn. Be it resolved that Council receive the following 2023 budget presentations and refer to staff for inclusion in the budget considerations. 1. Pelham Soccer Club. 2. Lincoln Pelham Public Library. 3. Niagara Division Canadian Railroad Historical Association. To you, Mr. Mayor, for discussion.
Thank you. Any further discussion on this item? Not seeing any, Madam Clerk?
Thank you. The vote begins with Councillor Kaur.
Yes.
Councillor Olson.
Yes.
Councillor Stewart.
Yes.
Councillor Wink.
Yes.
Councillor Hahn.
Yes.
Councillor Hildebrandt.
Yes.
Mayor Junkin.
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. That carries. I have a motion put forth by Councillor Hildebrandt, seconded by Councillor Wink. Be it resolved that Council direct the following items be included in the 2023 budget for Council consideration. 1. 8 parking spots in Ridgeville. 2. Light crosswalk at Wellington Heights. 3. Replacement of dead trees along boulevards. To you, Mr. Mayor, for any discussion.
Thank you. Any further discussion, debate on these items? Not seeing any, Madam Clerk?
Thank you. The vote begins with Councillor Olson.
Yes.
Councillor Stewart.
Yes.
Councillor Wink.
Yes.
Councillor Hahn.
Yes.
Councillor Hildebrandt.
Yes.
Councillor Kaur.
Yes.
Mayor Junkin.
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. That does carry. To you, Mr. Mayor, that takes us out of the budget meeting and back to our regular council agenda. And I do have a motion put forth by Councillor Stewart, seconded by Councillor Olson. Be it resolved that the following minutes be adopted as printed, circulated, and read, being RC 18-2022, October 17th, 2022, regular council. Mr. Mayor, I ask that you call for any errors or omissions.
Thank you. Any errors or omissions in these minutes noted by any councillor? Not seeing any hands, Madam Clerk?
Thank you. The vote begins with Councillor Stewart.
Yes.
Councillor Wink.
Yes.
Councillor Hahn.
Yes.
Councillor Hildebrandt.
Yes.
Councillor Kaur.
Yes.
Councillor Olson.
Yes.
Mayor Junkin.
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. That carries. Mr. Mayor, that brings you to item number 7, which is the request to lift consent agenda items. Any councillor may request an item be lifted should they choose to have the motion that's attached to it amended. If a councillor just wishes to speak to an item, they're not required to lift it. To you, Mr. Mayor, if you can call to see if there's anyone who wishes to lift an item.
Thank you. Any councillor wish to lift any item? I see Councillor Kaur.
Yes, through you, Mr. Mayor, I'd like to lift 10.2.4.
Sorry, through you, Mr. Mayor, that was 10.2.1.
4, Holly.
That's not a consent.
Sorry, do you mean 8? We're on the items 8. 10 is a staff report, which you'll be able to speak to.
Okay, I'm very sorry.
Not at all, Counselor. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. On the agenda, on the consent agendas, I see Councillor Wink.
Yes, I'd like to lift 8.5.1, please.
Okay, thank you. Any other councillor that would like to lift any item? Not see it. Madam Clerk?
Thank you. I do have a motion put forth by Councillor Hahn, seconded by Councillor Kaur. Be it resolved that the consent agenda items as listed on the November 7th, 2022 council agenda be received and the recommendations contained therein be approved. Save and accept item 8.5.1, which was lifted by Councillor Wink. To you, Mr. Mayor, you may now discuss the items on the consent agenda.
Thank you. Before going to council, I would like to discuss 8.3.4. That's the memo on Sulphur Springs. Realizing this report was wrote, I believe, 10 days ago or 2 weeks ago. I was wondering if the Director of Public Works had any current facts that he would could give us on this emergency road repair. Jason?
Yes, thank you. Through you, Mr. Mayor. The work is proceeding quite well, actually. I was on site today to take a look. The contractor is working away, and I expect that they'll have it completed within 2 weeks' time.
Excellent, thank you. And are we still within the parameters of the figures that accompanied this report?
Yes, through you, Mr. Mayor. So yeah, we'll be sure to be on budget there for that work. We're not seeing any surprises to this date. As long as the weather holds, we'll make good time and get it done.
Excellent. Thank you for that report. Councillor Olson.
Yes, through you, Mr. Mayor. Item 8.5.2, and this is the more homes built faster, and the adjustments that have been made were going to be made by the government with respect to development charges and several other things. And I wanted to ask Ms. Weens if she would be able to include a report of some kind that goes along and shows the impact of this change to, or this act, because I found the last report that she did on the changes that were coming to be very informative and useful to me, and I just wondered if there was a possibility we would have this, because I expect that there's going to be some impact on our budget deliberations as well that arise from this.
Okay. To the Director of Planning, Ms. Weens.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, through you. Thank you. Certainly Bill 23 was released just about a week and a half ago. And it has received second reading, and this government is moving fast to move this bill through the House, and we anticipate it would likely get approved and receive royal assent certainly before the end of this year. Their Bill 23 does propose to amend 7 different pieces of legislation. And so there will be a number of impacts on the town with respect to this bill if it's approved the way it's currently written. And so there's impacts on certainly operationals in terms of planning and development engineering review, but there's also financial impacts with respect to development charges. And there are a number of other initiatives that the provincial government has also released in the last 2 weeks, and even as late as Friday as well, dealing with changes to provincial policies and other pieces of legislation. So There's a lot happening. It's very disruptive at this time, and I do hope to be able to bring you a report on kind of what the implications are for the town going forward. And I would hope to do that in December.
Counselor?
Okay, yes, thank you, Ms. Weens. I've read in the paper that various communities or various municipalities have had their targets set for how many houses they have to construct as part of this $1.5 million house build over so many years. Have we ever received a target number?
Ms. Weens?
So, Mr. Mayor, through you, as part of this, the province released housing targets for 29 of the largest municipalities. And so in Niagara, that affected St. Catharines and Niagara Falls in terms of targets. Now, that being said, as of Friday, last week, the province did approve the region's official plan, and you will recall that there are growth projections in that official plan as well, and that the town has going to have an obligation to deal with. So all of this is moving very quickly. The growth targets in terms of that the province just released a week or so ago with respect to the 29 largest municipalities are in addition to kind of those growth projections that we were working with. So those targets really affect St. Catharines and Niagara Falls.
Thank you,
Counselor?
Mr. Mayor. Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Weens.
Thank you. And if I may just comment further, we had a slight discussion on this same bill at the region. No analysis, no deep analysis has been made on it, of course, but it seemed like the region was going to be more affected than the municipalities themselves. That tends to everything will shake out in time, but the reason the government has passed this bill or wishes to pass it is because they realize that there has not been very much progress, headway made on solving the homeless problem, the affordable housing problem in this province. And in fact, you can say the whole country, and they are hoping that by implementing these changes that we will speed up the process of getting people off the streets into houses and residences, and also improve the affordability of the housing. Would you concur to that, those statements, Ms. Weens?
So, Mr. Mayor, through you, I mean, certainly that is the province's messaging. They're all about building more houses faster. Whether or not those houses will be affordable or not is still another question. Certainly in the province of Ontario, housing is, really a market-based commodity, and government does not and cannot influence the price of housing. But are there other initiatives in terms of trying to encourage affordability and those kinds of things? Yes, but when we see the details of all of this, I'll be able to answer that perhaps a little bit more better because at this point in time, a lot of the details have not been released in terms of how we're going to achieve those. And just by flooding the market with housing doesn't necessarily make it affordable. So there's a lot of unanswered questions here that we're all struggling to try to come up with because the details have not been released. But certainly, that is the provincial goal in terms of the messaging that they've issued. It is certainly wanting to deal with the affordable housing issue that we have in this province. So that's one of the objectives, correct?
Great, thank you for that. And I know the council looks forward to your report. I believe you said coming in December?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, through you, I'd like to bring a report forward in December. It will depend exactly on when this bill gets royal assent, and I will after November 25th, we will have a better read on that. Currently, right now, the bill is out for 30 days for public review and comment. That closes on November 24th. And if they approve this bill and give it royal assent quickly thereafter, then we should be able to get a report to you early in December. If not, then in the new year. If there is a delay in the approval or the giving of royal assent, so then the report might be a little bit later. So it's a lot of it is up in the air right now, and until we see the final piece of legislation and what might be changed as versus what is being released so far, we'll be able to better report then.
Okay, thank you. We, like I say, whenever it comes, we will be looking forward to it. Thank you. Any other consent agenda? Oh, go ahead, Councillor Stewart.
Yes, thank you. Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Ms. Weens. Premier Ford announced that there would be development on Greenbelt. Do you know if that is just in the Greater Toronto area or if that will affect us here?
Ms. Weens?
So, Mr. Mayor, through you, yes, on Friday afternoon, the province released again proposed changes to the Greenbelt plan, and they have released that. It's out for 30-day comment. In Niagara, the change relates to lands in Grimsby only, where they want to remove land that is currently in the Greenbelt and make it urban land. And so it doesn't affect Pelham, but there is certainly some land in Grimsby that is being impacted by that proposal. Again, that's out for a 30-day review and public feedback and comment. And like I said, there's lots that the Ford government has been releasing in the last 2 weeks that will affect certainly development and planning, but also have financial implications on the town. And then the issue around resources is also going to be a question that we'll need to look at.
Councillor?
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Stewart. So we're ready to move on to the any other agenda items that any councillor would like to comment on. Not seeing any, Madam Clerk.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, thank you very much. So this is for the consent agenda, save and accept item 8.5.1. And the vote with this one begins with Councillor Wink.
Yes.
Thank you. Councillor Hahn.
Yes.
Councillor Hildebrandt.
Yes.
Councillor Kaur.
Yes.
Councillor Olson.
Yes.
Councillor Stewart.
Yes.
Mayor Junkin.
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. That does carry. That does bring us to our item, which was lifted for separate consideration. Mr. Mayor, just for clarity, this is the Friends of Maple Acres funding request, and the initial resolution attached is be it resolved that council receive correspondence dated October 12th, 2022 from Friends of Maple Acres regarding their funding request for information. To you, Mr. Mayor, it was Councillor Wink who lifted the item.
Yep, Councillor Wink, you have the floor.
Yes, thank you. So the Friends of Maple Acres are asking for a $5,000 donation regarding the tree carving. Has it been determined yet if that tree in fact is on town property or is that on public or private property?
Well, I know the answer, but I'll let Mr. CAO go ahead.
It is not on public property, Councillor Wink.
So then if it's not on public property, how can we consider giving money towards the tree carving as a result?
Mr. CAO?
Well, from a legal perspective, the only thing this council is really prohibited from doing is what the Municipal Act refers to as bonusing, is providing a financial benefit to a competitive business that it doesn't present to others. So showing economic favoritism. Beyond that, you're the board of directors of a $25 million corporation and have the capacity to direct us to spend the resources as you best see fit. So there's nothing specifically prohibiting the town from complying with this request. The question is one of policy and or evaluation, and whether we think it's an appropriate use of resources or whether we think there's adequate community benefit or similar. But there isn't a specific legal prohibition prohibiting or preventing us from so doing.
So if the owner of the private property didn't want that on his property anymore, they could get a chainsaw and just fell the remaining part of that tree. Is that correct?
That is correct, sir.
Okay.
Well,
so I like the idea of it, but not being on town land, I would never support providing a donation in this regard, particularly after it came after the fact. You know, they went ahead and did it, and now they're asking for money instead of asking for money and then going ahead and doing it. They probably would have got the same answer, but I certainly wouldn't support this.
Okay, thank you, Councillor. Yeah, before I open it to other comments from Councillor, I will take the opposite view. Councillor Wink, I think that tree has brought a lot of attention to downtown Fenwick. The group themselves, Maple Acres, has funded the vast majority of the cost. They had a fundraiser on Saturday. They, I believe, the letter that we got, they expect to do more fundraisers. And yes, did they go about it the right way? But no, they didn't follow protocol as such. The owner of the property that has the tree on it enjoys the tree very much, appreciates the work that has gone into it. No time is this owner going to do anything to render this whole project useless as such. So myself and Mr. CAO, I think because this is can be considered a community improvement, and of course, as you said, we are a board. It would not be out of line to answer this request. But true enough.
Your worship, this council at its final meeting has the capacity to spend up to $50,000 of taxpayer money on unbudgeted items. That is the state of the law. It's whether it's a question of whether it's public value is literally for the seven of you to decide. It is. If four or more of you say it is, then so be it.
Okay.
So it's entirely in your hands. You have the legal capacity and the financial capacity to do so. That's where we're at.
And are we to make that decision tonight, or is this a budgetary item, Mr. CAO?
There's no staff report. Right now, there's just a piece of correspondence that's been lifted. You are capable as a group of doing such things as bringing a motion to refer this to the budget for either to have us specifically included or to simply have it included as an option, as an item referred to budget. You could make a different sort of motion to support or not support the project this evening. You could bring a motion to support it, based on some sort of fundraising target or on some sort of condition precedent similar to that. You could refer the thing back to some months into the future so that the next council can deal with it after budget process. Literally the world is your oyster.
Okay, thank you. And before I turn it back to council, I believe Ms. Quinlan Murphy, if you're still on the meeting, the Friends of Maple Acres do in fact, or there was a budgetary item of, I believe, $10,000 or $14,000 raised by a Fenwick group to be used in Fenwick. Could you elaborate on that, please?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, there was a group, I don't have the details in front of me, but there was a group that did fundraising with various bricks. I think the Director of Recreation has more details. She was here at the time to explain that. But what I can say is that I think it was about $14,000 or $15,000. We had the money set aside from donations, and we moved that into a reserve for any upgrades to the downtown Fenwick. So it could be used for any of those, anything that council wants for downtown Fenwick.
Thank you. So,
Anything else, Vicky, about that?
yes, Ms. Van Ravensway, any further comments?
Yes, through you, Mayor Junkin. The funds were raised during the Village of Fenwick 160th anniversary. The committee raised funds for the celebration, and the funds were left over from the actual brick sales. And as Ms. Quinlan Murphy stated, it is set aside in a reserve.
Okay, thank you for that. Councilor Wink.
Yes, so if I recall in the August presentation, I believe it was August, the Friends of Maple Acres were asking for that full $14,000 in addition to further shortfall. Are they still asking for that $14,000, or would that our $5,000 donation come out of that 14?
Does any staff member have that updated figure? I don't see anyone. Perhaps Councillor Stewart?
Yes, thank you. Through you, Mr. Mayor, right in this letter from the Friends of Maple Acre, it specifically says that they are asking for $5,000.
Yes. Okay. And I believe that in I believe it was on the same correspondence that they do plan on doing more fundraising in the near future. Is that correct, Councillor?
Yes, it is, Mr. Mayor. I'm sure you're aware of the waffle brunch we had on Saturday.
Yes. Yeah, it was
I think
tasty.
you enjoyed it, as did Councillor Hildebrand and Councillor Olson. We don't have the final tally yet of the amount of money that we've raised for the project from this, but I do have to say that it was very well supported by the public, and the vast majority of the foodstuffs that we needed to make the waffles and serve the fruit and the whipped cream and the coffee, most of that had been donated by local merchants and by members of the public. It was very well received, and we're planning on doing another one just ahead of Valentine's Day. So maybe we can all find heart-shaped waffle makers.
Well, it was a very tasty fundraiser, and I'm looking forward to the next one. That's for sure.
Okay, February 11th.
Okay, thank you. Councilor Olson, did I see your hand? Oh, I'm sorry. Councilor Wink, were you done? I'm sorry.
Yes, thank you.
Oh, okay, thank you. Councilor Olson?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor, and the waffles were indeed pretty good. I'm not a waffle eater, but they were worth eating. They outdid our manhole covers that we made at Summerfest. I have to say I'm very impressed with the Friends of Maple Acres and the contribution they've made to the town and making sure that the library was preserved when there were thoughts of closing it, and working along with the public and fundraising. And it's one of the kind of grassroots organizations that I would like to see supported. I would like to see a final accounting for the cost of the carving. I would like to see some alternatives for funding, such as taking money from this fund, and I shouldn't say taking money, but allocating money from the fund that exists, and including their fundraising plans, because I think those their type of wishes. They're an organization that has done a lot of good for the town, and I think their work should be honored. And $5,000, if that's the number that comes up, is not a lot of money, and I think that's worth it just to keep them working and keep their encouragement up. So I'd be in favor of putting this, deferring this, and putting it into the budget deliberations at whatever number we arrive at, if it's $5,000 or whatever it comes out of the deliberations and the calculations that have to be done by the treasurer to see what we have and their fundraising.
We need a seconder, Madam Clerk?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, yes, if this is a motion to refer the item to be considered in the 2023 budget for council's consideration, then yes, I would have Councillor Olson as the mover, but I would need a seconder.
Okay, thank you. Is there any councillor that that would second this? Councillor Hildebrand?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, being a fellow waffle eater, and enjoying it immensely, I will be a seconder on the motion. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, councillor.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, thank you. So it's that the matter be referred to the 2023 budget consideration. So therefore, it would be added to the budget for council to consider when they're considering the budget.
Excellent. And there is no debate.
You can debate on the merits of to referring it or not, but that's about it. Through
Yes.
you, Mr. Mayor.
Okay.
Thank you.
Any other debate on this item? Obviously, it's going to be deferred to become a budget item. Any other comments or on this item? Okay. Oh, I see Ms. Quinlan Murphy first.
So through you, Mr. Mayor, deferring to the budget, are you also stating that the funds would be coming from the money that was set aside from the donations? Is that how it's going to be funded?
Madam Clerk, I believe that was the wish.
If Councillor Olson would like to have it say where it's coming from, certainly he can.
I don't think I actually said that, but I would hope that we would have a report that would include the final cost of the tree itself, the fundraising portion that is envisaged, and what the use of the funds that are on hand from the BRIC or the Downtown Beautification Fund for Fenwick, where I would hope we would be able to consider all those things together, because there's a number of unknowns here, I think.
Thank you, Councillor. Is that suitable, Ms. Quinlan Murphy?
Yeah, that's fine. Thank
Okay,
you.
thank you. Councillor Stewart, again, under the wire.
Yes. I try. Through you, Mr. Mayor, I actually would prefer to not defer this. It's not a huge ask. There's beautification money in reserve. So, my personal feeling on it is that we should move to just cover this and let the group continue their fundraising to pay for the rest of it. It's something, $5,000 isn't a whole lot of money for something that benefits the entire town. Thank you.
Okay, let me turn to the clerk to have a ruling on that.
Thank you. So right now, we currently do have a mover and a seconder on the motion to refer. So that's what we're debating now, but certainly Councillor Stewart could indicate whether or not she's going to support or not support the motion as it is.
So then, if the majority ruled not to defer, then Councillor Stewart could make another motion.
Yes, so right now, it's a motion to refer to the 2023 budget, and I did hear that Councillor Olson also wanted to include directing staff to provide council a report of the total project and how the project would be funded. If this would be defeated, it would bring us back to the main motion, and Councillor Stewart certainly could bring an amendment directing staff to provide the $5,000 from the reserve fund if this
Okay.
is defeated. Should this carry, the matter would be disposed of.
Yes. Okay, thank you. Any clarification? I see. Councillor Corr?
Could we have Councilor Stewart's motion first?
Through you, Mr. Mayor,
No.
no, this motion is on the floor. It's been moved and seconded. If it is defeated, then Councillor Stewart would be welcome to make her amendment.
Okay. So there you have it. We have the defer is going to be voted on first. If it's defeated, then we move on to another motion, perhaps. Correct?
That would
Madam
be
Clerk?
correct, Mr. Mayor.
Okay. Any other comments, questions before we call the vote on the deferral? Not seeing any. Madam Clerk?
Thank you. So just for clarity, the motion's being put forth by Councillor Olson, seconded by Councillor Hildebrandt. Be it resolved that the matter be referred to the 2023 budget for council consideration, and that council direct staff to report to council the total cost of the project and how the project will be funded. Any debate, Mr. Mayor, or shall I call the vote?
No. Councillor Olson?
Yes, through you, Mr. Mayor. The reason I want to defer is because we don't know the final value of what the cost of this is going to be. I don't want to limit us to $5,000 because we may be asked to do more. And I'm not looking for a whole lot more, but it may be more than that. And if we tie their hands, I think it's too early to arrive at that number. That was my purpose.
Okay. Thank you, Councillor. And Councillor Stewart?
Yes, thank you. Through you, Mr. Mayor. It says right here that they've raised just a few dollars short of $12,000 to date, which is 60% of the goal. I'm not quick enough with the calculator, but that would give, by doing the math, it would tell us how much. So that would take us pretty close to what it is. So we could do the math and figure it out, and then we would know what the cost is. So who's quick with a calculator?
Certainly not I. I'm thinking that on a $5,000, if the 60% is 12,000, then the 5 would get us to, 75%?
If the price is indeed $20,000.
Yes, yes.
Allison?
Sorry, through you, Mr. Mayor, I do see the CAO had his
Oh,
hand up.
I'm sorry.
Not sure he wanted to speak.
Mr. CAO?
To assist both this evening and so as to avoid a morass during the upcoming budget sessions, may I suggest that council consider not deferring the matter, proceeding with councillors, so vote in the negative, allow Councillor Stewart to bring a motion. You do or don't support providing $5,000. That's what the request is. If you do support providing the $5,000, that hopefully puts the matter to bed. If not, the group is free to come back and ask. There are no reconsideration rules after an election, a new council sworn in. It's a blank slate. Secondly, I'd point out I'd much rather use Ms. Quinlan Murphy's valuable time to have her write a report talking about how we can use those funds in the future. There's a legal process whereby we can sort of assume carriage of them. Right now, we're asking our finance department to sort of track this money that we hold sort of in trust, although not in a formal legal trust, for some sort of unspecified community benefit. And so there's just an ongoing accounting work that has to happen every single year. And I think her time, we have a staff lawyer and we have a couple of very good staff accountants. I think their time would be well spent figuring out how to do the rest of that and then put this sort of the financing issue to bed, because frankly, this takes a fair bit of staff time and that's not free. So I make no submissions on whether or not you want to support the $5,000 ask, but if you do, it might put it to bed. And if you don't, also fair enough, but we can deal with it again next term, not in the budget process, because those monies are held in small t trust by the town and the money's not going anywhere. Although eventually we have to figure out what to do with the balance of it either way.
Okay, thank you, Mr. CEO. Councillor Olson?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I'd be prepared to withdraw my motion based on the wish to finish this and get the tree paid for and the advice of the treasurer and the CAO.
Thank you. Councillor Hildebrand, is that okay with you being the seconder?
Agreed.
Okay, thank you. So the motion to defer is now off the table. And Councillor Stewart, would you like to have put forward a motion?
Yes, I would. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I would like to move that we grant the request for $5,000 for the tree carving and have that money come from the $15,000 or $14,000 funds that are left over from the beautification.
Thank you. And is there a seconder for Councillor Stewart? I see Councillor Corr will second that. Thank you, Councillor. Debate on this motion. No, not seeing any hands up. Councillor Stewart, it is your motion. Any final words, or have you pretty well got it covered?
I think that's it. Holly may need to clean it up a bit, but I think we all know the intent of the motion.
Okay, and Councillor Corr, you're the seconder. Any comments?
Let's vote on it.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Madam Clerk?
Thank you. So therefore, it's that the motion be amended to include, and that council will grant the request of the $5,000, and that council directs staff to take that money from the, I believe it was called the Beautification Reserve Fund, but I'm sure Ms. Quinlan can tell me tomorrow what it's formally called. And if that's satisfactory to council, then if there's no other debate, we can call the vote.
Okay.
Yeah, sorry,
Ms. Quinlan?
Sorry. Yeah, no, we don't have a beautification reserve fund. Can you just say that it's coming from the donation, the money that was donated for the 160th anniversary of Fenwick? Because then it's specific to the fundraising.
Certainly, thank you for that.
That money is sitting in the working funds reserve. That's where it's sitting, but it's just better to make it reference the fundraising.
Thank you. I have changed that to the donations from the 160th anniversary of Fenwick. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any further discussion on the motion? If not, we shall call the vote.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The vote begins with Councillor Hahn.
Yes.
Councillor Hildebrand.
Yes.
Councillor Corr.
Yes.
Councillor Olson.
Yes.
Councillor Stewart.
Yes.
Councillor Wink.
Yes.
Mayor Junkin.
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The amendment carries. Therefore, you're at the main motion as amended. Do you have any other debate?
Any other questions or debate on the motion as amended? Not seeing any, Madam Clerk?
Thank you. Just for clarity, the mover will be Councillor Stewart with the seconder as Councillor Corr again, and the vote begins again with Councillor Hahn.
Yes.
Councillor Hildebrand.
Yes.
Councillor Corr.
Yes.
Councillor Olson.
Yes.
Councillor Stewart.
Yes.
Councillor Wink.
Yes.
Mayor Junkin.
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. That does carry. To you, Mr. Mayor, that brings you to your next item of business, which is reports from members of council. And we do have a report from Councillor Hildebrand regarding the final Utility Sustainability Committee. To you, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, Councillor Hildebrand, are you ready to prepare to proceed with the report?
Yes, sir, I am. Thank you. Thank you for this opportunity.
Then you have the floor.
Thank you. We had 3 exceptional talented engineers from the public on this committee. Gordon Marasco was instrumental in the first contact in 2016 with Hydro One and Council with rate disparity between Hydro One and NPR, our 2 LDCs, local distribution companies. Dave Cano, Energy Efficiency Manager for the town of Oakville, under his guidance, Oakville is a leader among municipalities for zero-emission buildings, EV charging stations, EV town equipment, including EV ice resurfacers, but they don't have a self-driving ice resurfacer yet. Hoping he gets there soon. And cold water ice flow. Jeff Freed, Wrigley College. Don't let the architecture of Wrigley College in St. Catharines fool you as to the high-tech facilities they operate. The theater, the rink, the gyms, the backup generation, and the energy efficiency plants that they have are second to none. I would encourage each of you to take a visit to their theater, their rink, or their facility to see how amazing that facility that looks old is operating. I'd also like to compliment the staff with 100% buy-in to introducing energy efficiency costs. I'd like to make honorable mentions for the mayor and CEO who arranged, attended delegation presentations with our energy minister, Greg Wickford, 2 with Todd Smith, also Queen's Park, where we met with 4 Ontario Hydro executives. Councillor Wink, who toured Fort Erie Leisureplex complex with me, as it was our comparator that we're working with, and provided continuous updates to MCC observations that we needed to address. Council and staff, for the flexibility to make organizational structural changes that significantly impact the efficiency operation of the MCC at the start of this mission when we put all the MCC under one leader. With that, I'd like to go to the summary of savings. The yearly electricity savings accomplished by this committee are outstanding. The fact that this year, 2022, the MCC staff is actually able to be 20% under that target, or $35,000, is truly outstanding. That's a real compliment to the hard work. The cold water ice flooding technology savings of $60,000 a year, that was obtained. That technology was exactly what Oakville instituted. I've been in contact with many municipalities around the region, and I think we're the only one that has cold ice flooding. It's hard to imagine. Even the newest center that they just opened by Brock, I don't believe has cold water ice flooding. We have the software ready to go, but we're lacking resources to get the input so we can have the analysis and give you the exact number of the savings we've achieved there. One of the other things we were instrumental on was the LED light savings, and that's the first part of that is going to be completed by December of this year. Turning off the operation of the heating and some of the hydro saved us $30,000. The one big change we made was we renegotiated with Hydro One and established the proper Hydro One rate classification for our MCC. When the MCC was originally signed up with Hydro One, we signed up for the wrong rate classification. It's a complex issue and it needs proper identification. It's one of the things we work on yearly to review that classification to make sure we're getting the right rate. It's not as simple as at your home where you only have 2 rates you decide on, whether you're going to be in the tiered or whether you're going to be at the 600 watt fixed rate. It depends on a lot of things. The outstanding issue. The outstanding issue is the hydro rate classification for Pelham residents. This is still ongoing with our friends at Hydro One. They're making no intent or no movement in that area. The low voltage issues in Fenwick are still ongoing. As of 2 weeks ago, I still got reports of 108 volts being received, and this is hard on electronic equipment, motors, and your appliances in the home. We do know that Hydro One did a big outage on October 30th at the Allenburg Transformer Station. They also worked on the transformer station west of E.L. Crosley High School, and I'm not sure what the impact of it's going to be. It's hard to get exact details of what they did. All I know is in contacts with Penn West, the board whose I'm on, they installed 3 voltage regulators to try and address the voltage imbalance problem that we have in Fenwick at a bigger 600 volt operations. So if that what they did helps, I think they may have solved that problem. Infrastructure upgrades, that's one of the things. I also serve on ISO meetings for the town of Pelham, which ISO is responsible for the high voltage transmission of electricity and the supply of electricity in Ontario. And we're constantly meeting. There's many municipalities represented, and you hear all the issues across the province with regards to hydro supply and lack of proper hydro supply by Hydro One. The other thing, going back to the hydroid classification for our MCC. That's one of the things we do with staff yearly, and it's essentially that we keep on going. So I'd like just to thank everyone who's been involved. We had hoped to have the facility trends up to date to 2022. We're working on them. It's just not as simple as inputting the data from electric use and gas usage into that. It's a more complex thing. Dave Cano, who is the energy efficiency expert, runs an analysis program with a database with comparators, and he's been exceptionally busy. So we're working on that. With regards to trends at the town hall, where we've installed the equipment there to achieve the savings that we project, which is a third of the annual budget. We've got the data hopefully coming in soon from Ontario Hydro, like we do with the MCC, and we'll be able to track that in the future. So again, I'd like to thank everyone, because this has truly been a complete SLT, staff, council, everybody involved, and a lot of people working on a great project. I'm truly thankful to have the opportunity to work on this project. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Councillor Hildebrand, for that report, and of course the savings that you and the other members of the Sustainability Committee have achieved in the MCC are really quite astounding. It's amazing just how much electricity usage has been reduced due to the measures that you and that committee brought forward to the MCC. So again, I know this council and the residents all thank you for your commitment to the town on that committee. And the residents that were on that committee were obviously first-class individuals, and helped make that committee the winner that obviously it was. Again, thank you for the report, and thank you for your participation on that committee. Thank you. Any questions on the report? Councillor Stewart, and then Councillor Hahn.
Thank you. I'm always slow. Councillor Hahn actually had her hand up ahead of me.
Oh, okay. Councillor Hahn, you're up.
Thanks, Councillor Stewart. Through the mayor, just wondering, Councillor Hildebrand, can you speak more about Hydro One and I guess the next steps, or what the plan is for negotiations? I know you've had meetings, and I know there's been a lot of back and forth, and then there's been a lot of lulls in time where we've heard nothing. But can you speak to what the next steps are, please?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. I have been in contact with our MPP, who's been leading the charge with Hydro One. One of the interesting comments that Energy Minister Todd Smith asked me was, have we gone to the Ontario Energy Board? Now, we haven't gone there yet, but that may be a place where we have to go with this. And maybe the CAO has some comments with regards to that, but I'm at a loss, because we've presented all the factors, we've given them all the information, they know the answers. They know the answers to change the classification. So I'm not sure what defense they have anymore. I'm at a loss.
Mr. CAO, any comments?
Well, as usual, lawyers are often the solution to impossible problems. My personal track record at the OEB is 0-2. So thankfully, we have a town solicitor who's not me. I've never successfully argued a case there. And I think at this rate, I'm likely to never do so over the arc of my life. So there's that. But kidding aside, we do take Councillor Hildebrand's point. If we find ourselves unable to get the hydro company to count the way we think they ought to count, which is population is the basis for population density and classification, then we may need to consider other options if that is the will of council. We do have someone on staff who could, in theory, advocate in that forum. So that's a decision for a future day, but it's not in theory that's possible.
Thank you, Mr. CAO. Counselor?
The number of people we need according to Hydro One and the information we've given to them is a population of 3,000. I mean, we've provided them with the census data, we've provided them with impact data, and we've also got all the mailing addresses with the proper mailing address. That's what we presented at Queen's Park. And yet they failed to make a change at this stage. It's a pocketbook decision. Really, that's what it comes down to.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Hahn, any other comments?
No, thank you. I appreciate the answer, Councillor Hildebrand. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Stewart?
Yes, thank you. Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Hildebrand. On your Appendix A, facility trends, it's got a chart that displays the intensity. Can you give us a clear explanation of what that means?
Intensity talks about the performance of a building as compared to another or similar characteristics. The idea is if you have two arenas with the same square footage and usage, then the intensity should be similar. If one arena has an intensity higher than the other, then you probably have some inefficiencies in how the arena is operated. It is used mostly for benchmarking purposes. There are some standards in Ontario and Canada for all the types of public buildings that are around. What we do see is that that's the answer to that question. So hopefully that explains. It's really a comparative, and that's why those charts is not as simple as just putting the amount of energy used with electricity and gas into a chart. So it's a little more complex, and it's work that Dave Cannell does for us as part of the committee. Thank you.
Councillor Stewart?
Yes, thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions, comments on Councillor Hildebrand's report? Not seen. I turn to the clerk.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, thank you. I do have a motion put forth by Councillor Olson, seconded by Councillor Wank. Be it resolved that Council receive the Utility Sustainability Committee report from Councillor Hildebrand for information. To you, Mr. Mayor, for any other debate?
Okay, any other final discussion? Not seeing any, Madam Clerk?
Thank you. The vote begins with Councillor Hahn.
Yes.
Councillor Hildebrand.
Yes.
Councillor Kaur.
Yes.
Councillor Olson.
Yes.
Councillor Stewart.
Yes.
Councillor Wank.
Yes.
Mayor Junkin.
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. That does carry. To you, Mr. Mayor, that brings you to your first staff report on the agenda. And I do have a motion put forth by Councillor Wink, seconded by Councillor Stewart. Be it resolved that Council receive report 2022-0260, Recreation Christmas in Pelham 2022, and that Council designate Christmas in Pelham 2022 outdoor Christmas market to be held on Friday, December 2nd, 2022, from 4 p.m. to 9:30 p.m. at Pelham Town Square as a municipally significant event, and that the clerk be authorized to make application for a special occasions permit for the Christmas in Pelham outdoor Christmas market, and further that council authorize the following road closures: Pelham Town Square entrance at Pelham Street to 55 meters east of Pelham Street from 7 a.m. to 11:59 p.m. on December 2nd, 2022. To you, Mr. Mayor, for discussion.
Thank you. Any questions or discussion on this item? Not seeing any, Madam Clerk?
Thank you. The vote for this begins with Councillor Hildebrand.
Yes.
Councillor Kaur.
Yes.
Councillor Olson.
Yes.
Councillor Stewart.
Yes.
Councillor Wink.
Yes.
Councillor Hahn.
Yes.
Mayor Junkin.
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. That carries. To you, Mr. Mayor, your next staff report is with respect to Summerfest, and I have a motion put forth by Councillor Hahn, seconded by Councillor Stewart. Be it resolved that Council receive report 2022-0244 Recreation Pelham Summerfest 2022 final report, and that Council declare Pelham Summerfest 2023 July 13 to 16, 2023, a municipally significant event, and that council consider increasing the level of funding for the 2023 Pelham Summerfest to $25,000 from $15,000 as part of the 2023 budget approval process. To you, Mr. Mayor, for discussion.
Thank you. Any questions, comments on this report? Not seeing any, Madam Clerk?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This vote begins with Councillor Kaur.
Yes.
Councillor Olson.
Yes.
Councillor Stewart.
Yes.
Councillor Wink.
Yes.
Councillor Hahn.
Yes.
Councillor Hildebrandt.
Yes.
Mayor Junkin.
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. That does carry. To you, Mr. Mayor, I do have a motion put forth by Councillor Kaur, seconded by Councillor Hildebrandt. Be it resolved that Council receive Report 2022-0264 Summer Chill Series 2022 Final Report, and that Council designate Pelham Summer Chill Supper Market to be held on Thursdays between June to September 2023 in Peace Park as a municipally significant event on the following dates: June 8th, 2023, 4 to 11 p.m., June 15, 2023, from 4 to 11 p.m., June 22nd, 2023, 4 to 11 p.m., June 29th, 2023, 4 to 11 p.m., July 6, 2023, 4 to 11 p.m., July 13, 2023, 4 to 11 p.m., July 20th, 2023, 4 to 11 p.m., July 27th, 2023, 4 to 11 p.m., August 3rd, 2023, 4 to 11 p.m., August 10th, 2023, 4 to 11 p.m., August 17th, 2023, 4 to 11 p.m., August 24th, 2023, 4 to 11 p.m., August 31st, 2023, 4 to 11 p.m., September 7th, 2023, 4 to 11 p.m., September 14th, 2023, 4 to 11 p.m., September 21st, 2023, 4 to 11 p.m., and that the clerk be authorized to make an application for special occasion permit for Pelham Summer Chill Supper Market, and that council approve road closures Thursday nights from June 8th, 2023 to September 21st, 2023 from 5 p.m. to 9 p.m. between 39 Pelham Town Square and 31 Pelham Town Square. To you, Mr. Mayor, for discussion.
Okay, thank you. Any discussion, questions, comments on this item? Councillor Hildebrand.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to the Director of Recreation. Going into September for this event, like this year we ended in August. Was there a particular reason why we're going into September this time?
To Ms. Van Ravensway. Oh, we go to the treasurer, Ms. Quinlan Murphy.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, we had the construction of the Town Hall addition that had to start on September 1st. So that is why this year we had to end the event earlier, but normally it does go into September.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Councillor. Any other questions or comments? Not seeing any, Madam Clerk?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, thank you. The vote begins with Councillor Olson.
Yes.
Councillor Stewart.
Yes.
Councillor Wink.
Yes.
Councillor Hahn.
Yes.
Councillor Hildebrandt.
Yes.
Councillor Kaur.
Yes.
Mayor Junkin.
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. That does carry. To you, Mr. Mayor, I do have a motion put forth by Councillor Hildebrandt, seconded by Councillor Olson. Be it resolved that Council receive Report 2022-0252 Rule Hens Licensing Bylaw for information, and that Council direct planning and bylaw staff to prepare the bylaw to permit, regulate, and license rule hens in the town of Pelham. To you, Mr. Mayor, for discussion.
Okay, thank you. Any discussion on this? Before I pass it over to council, I would just like to say that I've changed my mind somewhat. I know I was with the majority of council, I believe, that didn't want to have any urban any chickens in the urban boundaries at all. Through consultations with citizens that have bigger backyards in the urban area, the fact that there is a sizable petition of residents that also wish to have a choice whether or not to have chickens. I honestly, like I say, to cover it all in one blanket, I just don't agree with that. I know we had good arguments on both sides, but the situation we had in East Fond Hill was indeed was intolerable for the neighbors, and a large part of that was extenuating circumstances on several levels, the number of poultry involved and the size of the yard. So that's my feelings, is that I've signed of the original report did have the planning department had the restriction would still exist in the urban boundary because as to the size of lots that would be needed to have chickens. And also, I'm glad to see that if anybody did want to have chickens, obviously the number, and not only that, but they would have to read this material and sign a piece of paper stating that they had read the material, which included ways to handle the poultry, feeding, and basic care and housing of the poultry, which I think makes the whole thing feasible in an urban setting. So anyway, those are my feelings. I'll open up to council for your comments. Councillor Kaur, I see your hand. Go ahead, sir.
Yes, thank you, Your Honor. I'd like to make a motion that we defer this until the first meeting in January of 2023. I did receive an email and several calls from concerned residents. They thought this issue was going to be brought up at the beginning of next year. Their feelings that they've been blindsided that this report is coming out, and they basically told me they don't think there's transparency. So I want to make a motion that we defer until the beginning of the first meeting of next year.
Okay, thank you, Councillor. Is there a seconder on council for this event? I see Councillor Hahn will second. Madam Clerk?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, thank you. So I have, be it resolved, that the matter be deferred to the first meeting in January 2023. The mover is Councillor Kaur with the seconder, Councillor Hahn. You can debate whether or not it should be deferred.
Okay, thank you. And well, Councillor Kaur, before I go back to you, Mr. CAO, any time sensitive on this issue?
No, Your Worship.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Kaur, you were the mover. Comments?
Yes, Your Honor. I just want to make sure, did we not promise these people that we will bring this up in January? Because they're telling me that.
Any staff want to comment on that? I actually thought I heard a January return to council, but I could have been wrong myself. I don't know. Any council, any staff member here remember that date or not? And I don't see any staff member with an answer on that. So, Ms. Weens?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, when this was debated last at council, there was no date given, so I'm not sure where the January date came from.
Okay.
You directed staff to come back with a report for rural hens, and that's what we've done.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, to you, Mr. Mayor. I'm just reporting on what the residents are telling. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Hahn?
Yes, the mayor. So I think there's a lot of confusion too between the rural and the urban, because when we originally were discussing this, it was urban, and then through the discussion we talked about rural, and it was brought up how odd it was that you could be living on 3 or 4 acres of property and yet you couldn't have some chickens in your backyard. So then the discussion turned down that path. And so again, tonight we're looking at the actual recommendation, and it's, be it resolved that, of course, we receive this information and then repair our bylaw to permit, regulate, and license rural hens. So I have also received some emails with people being confused as to why we're talking about that now, when the understanding was it would be the first of the year. I don't know if the terminology was first of the year or January, but nonetheless, people feel like there hasn't been fulsome discussion. I'm also seeing as well that there's a lot of social media back and forth and some name calling happening now too, which is kind of upsetting to hear. It's good to have debate, but I don't think anybody needs to be, rude to an opposing view. I think it's good to hear both sides, and that's what council I think needs to, and perhaps the new council will need to do, is hear both sides and have an opportunity to hear from residents and make their decision. So I would defer this.
Okay, thank you, Councillor. Mr. CEO, did I see a hand wave or not?
Oh, no, I'm wiser than that.
Oh, okay. Thank you for that. Any other comments on the motion to defer? Councillor Hildebrand?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, this is not a comment with regards to the motion to defer, and I hate to interject another complexity, but I understand that there's been an issue with bird flu, and it's affecting the markets with regards to the supply of birds. Now, that to me gets involved in the local community trying to pick up birds as well. So I'm not sure how that all fits in. But sorry for interjecting something that may be off the topic, but I think it's relevant to the fact that we're talking about this and something that will need to be addressed in the future.
Okay, thank you, Councillor. Councillor Stewart?
Yes, thank you. Through you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, I believe it should be deferred. As Councillor Hahn stated, it started off with a discussion of urban chickens, which I am in favor of. If the city of Toronto can manage to have urban hens, I don't understand why it would be impossible for us. There needs to be a certain area, like per chicken. Yeah, so how many square feet per chicken in an enclosed coop, and that can all be regulated. There needs to be setbacks for yards. So if you have 4 chickens, you need this much space, but your yard has to accommodate the setbacks to have that. So we're not talking about putting it on a townhouse lot where your backyard is, 3 by 9. We're talking about the whole town of Pelham, where we have most of our area has city lots that could accommodate 4 hens, 4 nice quiet clucking hens that eat a lot of insects besides their feed. And I think the whole issue needs to be revisited from that perspective. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Stewart. Councillor Wink?
So I'll say that the Toronto has recently done that, and it's a pilot project, so it's not a fait accompli. The city of Ottawa does not allow chickens, so you can, for every city you point that allows it, I'll find another city that's against it. So the density requirements have been put on us because of the province, and I'll fight this tooth and nail. And we approved it as a council that we would restrict urban chickens. Let me ask the CAO, since we approved it, how many councillors have to agree to turn it over at this point in time?
Actually, perhaps you should let the clerk answer that one, because we don't need a reconsideration. Go ahead, Madam Clerk.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, certainly I'll speak and then I'll turn it to the CAO. I have just pulled up the October 3rd meeting. The resolution that was passed was, be it resolved that council receive report 2022-0220 Urban Hens for information, and that council direct planning and bylaw staff to proceed with option 1, being do nothing, and that council direct staff to report back with recommendations regarding chicken hens in the rural area. It is my interpretation from this that council has asked that option 1 just be do nothing, doesn't tie council now to reconsider having the urban hens should they wish. It was just a status quo, and to ask staff to report back with respect to the rural area now, which the planning staff have done. I just ask Mr. CAO if he has any other interpretation of that or opinion.
Mr. CAO?
I agree with the clerk's interpretation of the direction from council. So we were directed to come back with a potential regime that would work for allowing hens in rural or semi-rural residential areas. We have done so. There is a licensing, in the report, we suggested a licensing regime as opposed to a property standards or a zoning bylaw, based regime, which would make things as of right. And so if that were passed, then that right could be in perpetuity. With a licensing regime, if the community dislikes the experience or a future council disagrees with your decision, you can end the licensing regime or make it more restrictive or less restrictive, but not give people fundamental rights that run with land and ownership and use of land. So that's what we've done. Council, overall, with respect, you have multiple staff reports in the last 3 months on this issue that have painstakingly made all the arguments for and all the arguments against. It is very true that this issue is divisive to the community, and we have all received email and online petitions and online commentary in favor of allowing backyard chickens and ducks and against that proposition. This is a divisive issue. It will, whatever decision you make, will offend some of our residents. You have all of the arguments for and against. I got to tell you, the 3 people who wrote this report do not privately agree with each other as to whether you ought to proceed or not. So we were very careful to make sure all the arguments are there. I think you have everything you need in front of you this evening to make the decision if you wish to do so. There are arguments for and against, and we were attempting to comply with your direction, which was come up with a solution for semi-rural areas. So in essence, the licensing regime says if the property is of certain size and you have certain setbacks, it could be permissible. Whether that's the right solution for Pelham or not, only the 7 of you can know. But a third staff report will simply be reiterating what we've written in the first 2. There is, I have lived through this now. This is my 5th municipality where this has happened. There are no new arguments there, that we have left no stones unturned. We have devoted considerable time and thought to this and attempted to comply with what we thought were your wishes. You have every right to support this, every right to oppose it, but I don't think there are any stones left unturned. So in an ideal universe, we'd make this decision this evening, one way or the other.
Thank you, Mr. CAO. I must, it's not a life and death situation, and if there are indeed people, residents out there that feel as if we're hurrying this decision and not being transparent with it, I think that in itself, I know there's 1 or 2 residents that actually want to appear before council and state their case. For that reason, I support the deferral, actually. Whether that means we're going to have 5 people or 20 people appear before council. I think it's for the act of transparency. I think it's myself. I would vote for that if that is comes to a vote. Council Wink, I believe you still had the floor.
Yes. So in our new zoning bylaw that we've approved, it did not allow for hens or chickens or however you want to refer it in the urban area. Is that correct?
Ms. Weems?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, through you, that is correct.
So this council approved the zoning bylaw. We also chose in the October meeting not to change that zoning bylaw by ignoring it. So how can we turn it over at this point in time when we essentially approve the bylaw?
Okay. We'll go back to Madam Clerk, and perhaps you can, again, give us your interpretation.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, thank you. What was approved by council was certainly to receive the report for information and just directing staff at this time to do option one, which was just simply to do nothing. So council didn't really commit to doing anything other than just leaving something as a status quo and asked staff to further report back. It is my opinion that council's hands are not tied and that council, if they wish to consider urban hens in the future, they're able to do so simply just because they said, let's just do nothing. And you didn't pick one of the options to either. And it wasn't clear. Council did not say to forbid or to not allow. It was just simply to continue with status quo, which was to do nothing. I'm not sure if that helps the councillor or if the CAO has any other commentary he'd like to add.
Well, I believe that, and Mr. CEO, correct me if I'm wrong, that once the clerk has made a ruling, that is her ruling. Is that not, Mr. CAO?
No, Your Worship. The actual ruling comes from you. The system, though, the clerk and I give you pointed advice, which we hope you strongly consider, but that is the chair's prerogative, one way or the other. Look, council, you are free. You have the legal capacity to defer this item this evening. You also have the legal capacity to make the decision this evening. That's our reality here. This became a live issue back in April. It is now November. There have been multiple staff reports on the issue. That being said, it is true that some residents do feel they would like to come and speak. Arguments they make are ones that are essentially encapsulated in either this or the last staff report. Those who speak in favor speak of educating their children, of access to safe local food, of connection to the supply chain. Those who speak opposed cite things like disease and vermin and noise and infringement on their lifestyle. These are arguments that are made in every municipality. This issue divides. Councillor Wink and Councillor Stewart are both correct. There are big cities that have gone for and against this. This is an issue where reasonable people disagree. It is extremely divisive, but there is nothing new left. There only be the number of people who come out and speak for and against. That's all that remains.
Okay, and I can appreciate that, and but I want to, but Councilor Wink has raised a valid point, and that's the ruling I'm talking about. Is Councilor Wink feels that we should have that this is a reconsideration, but the ruling from the clerk is no, this is not a reconsideration, right or wrong, Mr. CAO?
Then the clear thing to know is we have a zoning bylaw that prohibits chickens in urban areas. Animals of farm animals and animals of husbandry in urban areas. So right now they are prohibited. That's the key piece. That's where you sit. That's the law in Pelham as we sit here this evening. So the question on, is it a reconsideration? You gave us a direction to come back and do something, but that direction wasn't actually passing a new bylaw. You did, as a policy sort of decision, say, well, we'd like to ignore, we won't make any changes, which is to say status quo means chickens are banned, as are ducks, etc., horses and cows for that matter. So that's the law as it currently stands before you. We are suggesting not changing the zoning bylaw, but however, carving out an area, if it is the will of the majority of council to allow chickens in backyards, to do it through a licensing regime and not change the zoning bylaw. So there'd be a permission to license them. And as the report says, there'd be a way to do that. So that's the model we no matter what our personal thoughts are on whether it's a good idea or not, I think we're all in agreed that licensing would be the way to do it if that's the will of council to do it. So I don't think you're caught by reconsideration at the moment. I do think you're capable of making any decision you want this evening. From where I sit, there's adequate information. This has been a live issue for half a year. The community's been alive to it for a couple of months. And frankly, we are aware of the existence of chickens in backyards in the urban space. So a decision sooner is better than a decision later, but we will respect, ultimately, if you feel the public input outweighs the value of a timely decision, we will respect that and end up dealing with this early next year.
Okay, thank you for that, Mr. C. Councillor Wink, any last comments?
No.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Stewart?
Yes, thank you. Through you, Mr. Mayor, I'm in agreement that we should defer this decision. To Councillor Wink's point about Toronto, yes, it is a pilot project. I am aware of that, but they have expanded the areas of the city where they're allowing the urban hens, and they've also extended the pilot project by another year. And to the point of the chickens attracting vermin, so what's next? We're going to ban backyard bird feeders because they attract more than birds. You got squirrels, chipmunks, mice, and rats. They're all hungry. And I don't think chickens are going to attract any more than a backyard bird feeder. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Stewart. Any other comments? Right now, I believe, Madam Clerk, we are voting or discussing the deferral.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, yes, what is on the floor is the motion to defer to the first meeting in January.
Okay, so is there any more comments to be made on the motion before us, which is to defer until January? Not seeing any more comments. Madam Clerk, please call the vote.
Thank you. The first vote begins with Councillor Hahn.
Yes.
Councillor Hildebrandt.
Yes.
Councillor Kaur.
Yes.
Councillor Olson.
No.
Councillor Stewart.
Yes.
Councillor Wink.
No.
Mayor Junkin.
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. That does carry. The item has been deferred. To you, Mr. Mayor, I do have a motion put forth by Councillor Hahn, seconded by Councillor Kaur. Be it resolved that Council of the Town of Pelham, having given due consideration to the following bylaw, do now read a first, second, and third time and do pass same, and that the mayor and clerk be and are hereby authorized to sign and seal the bylaw. 1. Bylaw number 4496, 2022, being a bylaw to regulate the cleaning, clearing, and maintenance of land in the Town of Pelham, and to repeal bylaw number 4453, 2022. To you, Mr. Mayor, for discussion.
Thank you. Any discussion on this bylaw? Mr. CAO, any comments, or is this pretty straightforward?
No, Your Worship, I think you yourself had some questions at our last meeting while our town solicitor who drafted the bylaw was here. This is really a housekeeping modernization amendments that she found in the ordinary course of her business, and we commend it to you for passage.
Okay, excellent. I know I had no citizens contact me on it, so I take it that it is, like as staff has said, just a cleaning up of the and modernization of the bylaw. Any other comments, questions on this? Seeing none, Madam Clerk?
Thank you. The vote begins with Councillor Wink.
Yes.
Councillor Hahn.
Yes.
Councillor Hildebrandt.
Yes.
Counselor Kaur,
Yes.
Counselor Olson,
Yes.
Counselor Stewart,
Yes.
Mayor Junkin.
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. That does carry. To you, Mr. Mayor, that brings us to motions and notices of motion. We do have a motion put forth by Counselor Olson. Counselor Olson, would you like to read it into the record, or would you like me to do that?
I would prefer if you read it in, please.
Certainly. This motion is being put forth by Counselor Olson, seconded by Counselor Wink. Whereas the town of Pelham is committed to recognizing and commemorating the annual nationwide Day of Remembrance on November 11th to mark the sacrifice of many who have fallen in their service of their country and acknowledge their courage, valor, and sacrifice of the military personnel who served and continue to serve. And whereas the Canadian Warplane Heritage Museum hosts an annual Remembrance Day service honoring those who have served their country and recognizing the members of today's Canadian Armed Forces who build upon the legacy of our fallen heroes. And whereas the Canadian Warplane Heritage Museum facilitates the military tradition of a community cenotaph flyover traversing Hamilton and participating communities as part of the Remembrance Day service. And whereas the Canadian Warplane Heritage Museum annually calls upon communities within the Greater Golden Horseshoe for monetary support to offset the expense of operating the vintage military aircraft to be used during the community cenotaph flyovers. Now therefore be it resolved that Council for the Town of Pelham pledge an annual contribution of $2,500 adjusting for inflation as appropriate, whereby the Canadian Warplane Heritage Museum ensures the town's inclusion in the annual Act of Remembrance, and that staff be directed to include this expenditure as part of the 2023 budget and future budget year processes for council's consideration. To you, Mr. Mayor, for discussion.
Okay, thank you. Before we have a discussion, I'll ask for comments. Any further comments from the motion provider? Councilor Olson?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. We're fortunate to have the Legion Branch 613 in our community. They provide a lot of services to our veterans, our seniors, and people who just don't get out to take part in the community events. And this is one opportunity where we can have honor our veterans and honor the people who supported them at home. Often, I think the people that are really the people who should be remembered are the people that stayed at home and the people that worked in the war factories and things. And this is an opportunity for the town to extend our partnership. I know they appreciate the fact that we store and put up the banners and those type of things, but this is an effort to show the appreciation and deepen the partnership with the Legion.
Okay, thank you, Councilor Olson. And Councilor Wink as a seconder. Any further comments?
Yes, so I want to thank Councilor Olson for bringing this forward. I believe that last November we were in the same boat where at the last minute we were agreeing to pay $2,500 for the annual flyover. I think it's worthwhile that instead of this coming back to council year after year after year, is that we do build it in the budget. I concur with all the comments that Councilor Olson has said, and like to see this tradition continue for our town.
Thank you for those comments. Any other comments on this item from any other councillor? Not seeing any. I would also, however, like to say that I think this is a great initiative for this council to put into the budget. It's a fantastic way to help the ceremony on November 11th of Remembrance. It's actually pretty touching when you're there around the cenotaph and you're hearing the speakers, and then to have these planes do a flyover. It just it really is adds to the event, that's for sure, and cements why everyone is there to begin with. So I truly will support this initiative. Thank you. To the clerk.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, thank you. If there's no other debate, the vote begins with Councillor Hahn.
Yes.
Councillor Hildebrandt.
Yes.
Councillor Kaur.
Yes.
Councillor Olson.
Yes.
Councillor Stewart. Oh, it looks like Councillor Stewart might be frozen.
Oh, Councillor Stewart is frozen.
Okay, Councillor Wink.
Yes.
I don't see Councillor Stewart having returned, so I'm going to note that she's absent during this particular vote. And Mayor Junkin.
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. That does carry. To you, Mr. Mayor, we just lost Councillor Stewart. Ms. Leach will look for her when she returns and we'll bring her back into the meeting. I do have a motion put forth by Councillor Olson, seconded by Councillor Hildebrandt. Be it resolved that the next portion of the meeting be closed to the public in order to consider one housekeeping matter, closed session minutes. To you, Mr. Mayor, for discussion.
Any discussion on this motion? Not seeing any, Madam Clerk?
Thank you. The vote begins with Councillor Hildebrandt.
Yes.
Councillor Kaur.
Yes.
Councillor Olson.
Yes.
Councillor Stewart still not with us. Councillor Wink.
Yes.
Councillor Hahn.
Yes.
Mayor Junkin.
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. That carries. If you can just give me a moment to turn off the recording and the streaming. Thank you.
Yes, of course.
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Mayor, I can see that our streaming is back up and we are recording. I do have a motion put forth by Councillor Stewart, seconded by Councillor Kaur. Be it resolved that Council adjourn the in-camera session and that Council do now rise with no report. To you, Mr. Mayor, for discussion.
Thank you. Any further discussion on this item? Not seeing any.
Thank you. The vote begins with Councillor Kaur.
Yes.
Councillor Olson.
Yes.
Councillor Stewart.
Yes.
Councillor Wink.
Yes.
Councillor Hahn.
Yes.
Councillor Hildebrandt.
Yes.
Mayor Junkin.
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. That carries. Gee, Mr. Mayor, I have a motion put forth by Councillor Hahn, seconded by Councillor Stewart. Be it resolved that the following bylaw be read a first, second, and third time, and passed, and that the mayor and clerk shall authorize to sign, being a bylaw number 4497/2022, to adopt, ratify, and confirm the proceedings of council of the town of Pelham at its regular meeting held on the 7th day of November 2022. To you, Mr. Mayor, for any discussion.
Thank you. Any further discussion on this item? Seeing none.
Thank you. The vote begins with Councillor Olson.
Yes.
Councillor Stewart.
Yes.
Councillor Wink.
Yes.
Councillor Hahn.
Yes.
Councillor Hildebrandt.
Yes.
Councillor Kaur.
Yes.
Mayor Junkin.
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. That carries. Through you, Mr. Mayor, I have a motion put forth by Councillor Kaur, seconded by Councillor Hildebrandt. Be it resolved that this regular meeting of council be adjourned until the next regular meeting scheduled for November 21st, 2022 at 5:30 p.m. To you, Mr. Mayor, for discussion.
Any further discussion? I see Councillor Kaur.
Yes, through you, Mr. Mayor. I just wanted, it has been an honor and a privilege to serve the residents of this wonderful community. I wish the new council all the best, and I hope they continue with the great work that we started. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. In that light, any other comments from any other councillors? Not seeing any, Madam Clerk?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The vote begins with Councillor Stewart.
Yes.
Councillor Wink.
Yes.
Councillor Hahn.
Yes.
Councillor Hildebrandt.
Yes.
Counselor Kaur,
Yes.
Counselor Olson,
Yes?
Mayor Junkin.
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. That carries, and it is 8:26 p.m., and you can gavel out your meeting.
Good night, everyone.
Good night.
Good
night.
night.
Good night.